Chapter 1749. The soul-searching technique recorded in Senior Apprentice Sister Sun's Jade Slip is strange. Why is it completely different from the soul-searching technique of the Imperial Thunder Sect? Xianxia sat cross-legged in a cave with 2 jade slips in his hands. He frowned as he thought to himself. It had already been over 10 days since they killed the cultivator of the Spirit Husbandry sect. During this time, Xianxia and the others had already flown extremely far away. They did not see any disciples of the Spirit Husbandry sect chasing after them, nor did they meet any other cultivators. Sun Shu and the others let out a sigh of relief. As a result, Sun Shu suggested that they take a short break. After all, the battle before involved their lives and everyone was exhausted. At this moment, the 4 of them were completely different from when they first came out. Xianxia already had the right to speak without a doubt. Just look at how quiet Xianxia's cave was right now. Under Xianxia's approval, everyone found a secret location. Qian Diheng no longer insisted on cultivating with Xianxia like before. Instead, he found a cave by himself. Today was already the 4th day of their rest. Xianxia had already finished reading the jade slip that Sun Shu had given him. He had never come into contact with soul-searching techniques before, so he did not take the cryptic words and strange techniques seriously. However, when he finished reading the soul-searching technique in the jade slip that Qian Diheng had given him, he could not help but be stunned. Qian Diheng's jade slip did not only contain the soul-searching technique, but also a few other techniques. They were all techniques that Foundation Establishment and Aurus Core Stage cultivators could use. Qian Diheng had probably obtained them from one of his direct elders. These techniques were all upright techniques of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Although they were extremely difficult to learn, they did not seem strange. This was especially true for the soul-searching technique that Xianxia paid attention to. Sun Shu's jade slip was exactly the same as the one she had used that day. It captured a person's soul and used torture methods to interrogate them. This kind of soul-searching technique was most suitable for people who had just died. However, it was extremely difficult for living people to use it. After all, a living person's soul was closely connected to their body. Of course, the reliability of this soul-searching technique was also somewhat reduced. After all, it was said by the soul. It was like extorting a confession from a person. In this kind of situation, it was hard to avoid lying. On the other hand, the Imperial Thunder Sect's soul-searching technique was useful for living people. It directly used the technique on the person's head, directly searching the person's soul and finding the desired memories from the soul. The difficulty of this technique was naturally obvious. Just as Qian Diheng said, one must have the cultivation base of a gene-dance stage cultivator to be able to use this technique. Of course, the things obtained from this technique were credible. Sun Shu's soul-searching technique is simple, but it seems like it's a devil cultivator. Xianxia very naturally thought of the demonic banner in his space. However, the soul-searching technique of the Imperial Thunder Sect is even more frightening. It can actually search a living person's soul. The pain is obvious. Moreover, the consequences of the soul-searching technique are extremely serious. There's an 80 to 90% chance that it will turn others into idiots. This kind of idiot is better off dead than alive. Xianxia sighed. He made a copy of Qian Diheng's jade slip and stored it in the space. Then, his gaze fell on Sun Shu's black and gray jade slip. However, at this moment, a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. Xianxia immediately froze on the spot. Soon after, his entire body trembled, as if he had thought of something extremely terrifying. My mind is empty. I don't remember anything. Could it be that someone used the soul-searching technique on me? Xianxia's hands trembled. His teeth creaked as his pair of phoenix eyes widened. I'm afraid that's the case. Xianxia's eyes burned with raging flames of anger. If it wasn't the soul-searching technique, how could that kind of technique have such consequences? I can't just lose my memories for no reason. Who is it? This young master will definitely take revenge. Xianxia could no longer calm his mind. He jumped up from the ground with a whoosh. The mighty Vajra involuntarily emerged from his body along with his anger. Like an angry god, he flew into the air. Roar! Xianxia raised his head and roared. His left fist stretched out with a whoosh, and hit the stone wall not far away. Rumble! There was a burst of sound. The milky white brilliance on the stone wall was intense in the cave. Soon after, it was gradually annihilated. Roar! 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 Xianxia roared again 3 times. The fist of the avatar hit the stone wall again. Fortunately, the magical formation set up by Xianxia's rabbit spirit talisman was very miraculous. It blocked Xianxia's fist that had the strength of 1,000 catties. After the 4 punches, Xianxia could be considered to be relieved. His figure descended from the air. However, the anger in Xianxia's heart still hadn't calmed down. Xianxia's mind moved slightly. Soon after, he swung his fists and actually started practicing the Big Dipper magical fist technique in the cave. Immediately, that cold stream came out from his left foot. It slowly flowed through his entire skeleton along with the Big Dipper magical fist technique. After the 108 moves were finished, Xianxia's figure didn't stop. He started practicing again. At the same time that cold stream tempered the bones in his body, the Vajra avatar that Xianxia didn't absorb back into his body also had some golden light flowing faintly on its corresponding body. After an unknown amount of time, the cold stream of the Big Dipper magical fist technique gradually calmed Xianxia down. After waiting for the cold stream to stop, Xianxia sat down cross-legged again and absorbed the Vajra avatar back into his body. Sigh, I was too impulsive. At this moment, Xianxia was a bit scared. However, this was also normal. Ever since he had his memories, he had always been searching for his past. How could he not be impulsive when he suddenly thought that his soul might have been searched? In the future, if I can use this soul-searching technique, then I'll use it. If I can't use it, then I'll absolutely not use it. Xianxia thought to himself. Moreover, the soul-searching technique is only a guess. I may not be that unlucky. If my soul was searched and I still have my memories, now I can still recall my past memories from time to time, then I should have been searched by a powerful cultivator. How could such a cultivator make a move on a mortal like me? Those who can make a move on mortals are naturally low-level cultivators. If they used the soul-searching technique, can I still survive? Or can I still remember some things from the past? I still lost my memories for some reason. This was the conclusion that Xianxia came to in a calm state of mind. Soon after, Xianxia closed his eyes and calmed his breathing. After a moment, the technique in his hand slowly moved. It was the mysterious technique that Sun Shu used before. After a long time, Xianxia suddenly stopped and said with a frown, "This soul-searching technique is extremely difficult in the end. Moreover, it's similar to the techniques used in the secular world to extort confessions. It's really sinister and vile, really harmful to human harmony. It's different from my way of thinking." But immediately, he laughed first. This kind of evil technique is naturally used on evil people. This kind of evil person is evil in life and evil in death, so why can't I use it? I'm not a good person, so what's there to be afraid of? Oh right, isn't the Buddhist mantra Lin able to transcend the souls of the dead? If I use the soul-searching technique to capture them, then use the transcendence technique to tempt them, I'm afraid it'll also work. Great. Xianxia thought this through and couldn't help but applaud. Sun Shu's soul-searching technique was coercion, while Xianxia's Buddhist mantra was temptation. The methods were different, but the results were the same. It could be said that they complemented each other. Chapter 1750. Xianxia was in a good mood and took out the jade scroll again. When he checked it with his divine sense, he felt something was wrong because the soul-searching technique was cut off at the end. It didn't seem to have ended and there should be other contents. There seemed to be restrictions in the jade scroll, but his cultivation wasn't enough and he couldn't use it. Now that he thought of Buddhism, he naturally had to check it again with his Buddhist consciousness. It was when Xianxia's Buddhist consciousness had just penetrated the jade slip. He only felt that there were many restrictions like black gas inside the jade slip. These restrictions were different from what he usually saw, and the place where the soul-searching technique was located had been broken by someone. I got the method to control Buddhist consciousness but I didn't have time to practice it. Now I can practice Buddhist consciousness and break the restrictions at the same time. Xianxia smiled and temporarily put the jade scroll into his space. He took out the golden puppet that Han Yi gave him and checked it with his Buddhist consciousness. He practiced the control of Buddhist consciousness one by one. A few days passed and Xianxia was cultivating when he saw a communication talisman fly to his eyes. It was the one he left for Sun Shu. Xiaohua knew that the three of them should have finished resting and put the golden puppet and the jade scroll into his space. He opened the formation and left the cave. As expected, Qian Diheng and the others were waiting in front of the cave. When they saw Xiaohua coming out, they smiled and said, "Junior brother Xiao, we are ready. Can we set off today?" Of course. Xiaohua smiled. "Senior brothers, your bodies are good so we can set off. What a pity, after fighting with the disciples of Spirit Husbandry sect, you didn't break through to Foundation Establishment." Qian Diheng said regretfully. "Foundation Establishment?" Kuan Fian said sarcastically, "If you break through to Foundation Establishment, do you think you can still escape with your life when the 6 disciples of Spirit Husbandry sect are all in Foundation Establishment?" Then he looked at Xiaohua and smiled. "If such a situation happens, even if junior brother Xiao arrives in time, the consequences will be serious." "That's right." Xiaohua smiled. "Let's go to Netherworld." Then Xiaohua said to Sun Shu, "Senior sister Sun, do we still have to hide our tracks?" "What do you think, junior brother Xiao?" Xiaohua thought for a while and smiled. "Since we are already in Netherworld, we shouldn't be afraid of others finding out? There's no need to hide. And, if junior brother Xiao thinks there is no need, then there is no need." Qian Diheng laughed heartily and said, "If you keep hiding, it will make the disciples of my Imperial Thunder sect seem stingy." "Great!" Sun Shu and Kuan Fian clapped their hands. Under Sun Shu's guidance, the three of them flew towards Mingxi. Unknowingly, several months had passed. The weather was gradually turning cold. Autumn was coming, and the autumn wind and rain were very strong. As he gazed at the red leaves that covered the mountains beneath his feet, Xiaohua pointed with his hand and said with a smile, "We're not far away from Mingxi, and the best time for Mingxi to enter hasn't arrived yet. Why don't we descend and enjoy autumn first?" "Very good." Sun Shu's face lit up with joy. He clapped his hands and said, "To be able to steal half a day of leisure from a floating life, this is how it should be." Qian Diheng also agreed. Only Kuan Fian was a little hesitant. He said in a low voice, "Junior brother Xiao, in order to enter the Netherworld, I still need to make some preparations. Looking at the time if we delay again." "All right then." Xiaohua glanced at the mountain range that was dyed red with frost, feeling rather regretful. Sun Shu was naturally unwilling. Qian Diheng rolled his eyes and said, "How about this, since senior sister Kuan is going to prepare something, I'm afraid it's not appropriate for us to wait at the side. Why don't we delay here for a day, and senior sister goes alone?" "Great." Kuan Fian clapped his hands and said, "I will wait for you all in front." "Senior sister Kuan, be careful," Xiaohua said worriedly. "If there's any danger, we'd better follow along. It's also good to guard at the side." A slightly complicated expression flashed across Kuan Fian's eyes. He smiled and said, "No need. The people in front are all familiar friends. There won't be any danger." Then Kuan Fian bid farewell to the three of them and flew away from the original direction, while Xiaohua and the other two landed in the maple forest. "Senior sister Kuan is a little strange." Qian Diheng had just landed when he said curiously, "On the way here, I've never heard her mention anything about preparing anything. And there's no town in Mingxi. Who did she find to exchange?" Sun Shu said disapprovingly, "Maybe she didn't find anything suitable at the trade fair last month, so she sent a message to other familiar friends." "That's even more wrong. We went to Mingxi to avoid people first. We didn't want others to know about that place. With her doing this, wouldn't everyone know that we went to Mingxi?" Qian Diheng retorted. Then the two of them looked at Xiaohua. Xiaohua smiled and said, "Everyone has their own secrets. Didn't I also separate from you all for a few days? With me as a precedent, I'm afraid you can't blame senior sister Kuan." The two of them nodded slightly. Xiaohua took the two people up the mountain on foot. As they walked, they looked at the jagged rocks of grotesque shapes, the strange trees were hidden, and the palm-sized red leaves really looked like palms with 5-leaf tips. They faced the wind and swayed frequently, as if countless hands were beckoning them. "Oh, right. Senior sister Sun." Looking at the hands that looked like a sea of blood, Xiaohua thought of something. He patted his hand and took out the jade slip that Sun Shu lent him. He handed it over and said, "I've already seen this jade slip and memorized the soul-searching technique." Sun Shu was obviously very confident in Xiaohua's memory, so she took it without saying anything. But, Senior Sister Sun, this jade slip seems to have a restriction. Xiaohua glanced at the indifferent Sun Shu and asked in a low voice. Master got this from a trade fair. Sun Shu put away the jade slip and said with a smile. It's said to be an item from Yanshan. I'm sure Junior Martial Brother Xiao knows that those in Meng Mountains are soul cultivators, and they are very proficient in the cultivation of the soul. That's why their soul-searching technique is so unique that even chi-refining disciples like us can master it. It's completely different from the magic of our Imperial Thunder Sect. Xiaohua nodded. Exactly. After saying that, he returned Chen Diheng's jade slip. When it comes to soul-searching technique, Mianshan's technique is more powerful. Chen Diheng took back the jade slip and said, Unfortunately, we're Taoists. The elementary soul cultivation technique is fine, but the advanced soul cultivation technique will affect our Tao heart. It won't just affect our Tao heart. Xiaohua said with a smile. It's completely different from our cultivation technique. Chen Diheng and Sun Shu were descendants of the Imperial Thunder Sect, so they were naturally experienced and knowledgeable. After listening, they nodded repeatedly. They didn't know that Xiaohua had been diligently practicing the control of Buddhist sense every day for the past few months, practicing how to break the restriction in the soul cultivation jade slip. But in the end, Xiaohua found that his cultivation base was limited, and his understanding of soul cultivation was limited. He couldn't break the restriction at all. At most, he could bypass the restriction and read the contents of the jade slip. At this point, Xiaohua was already extremely satisfied. Wasn't his purpose to read the contents of the jade slip? Speaking of which, it was strange. This jade slip was from Yanshan, but the characters recorded in it weren't the soul cultivator characters that Xiaohua saw in the secret auction. Instead, they were the characters used by cultivators. It was the same as the soul-searching technique that he had already deciphered. Moreover, there was a lot of content behind the soul-searching technique. Although Xiaohua couldn't practice it now, he remembered it all in his heart. Of course, in addition to the soul-searching technique, there was also a soul cultivation technique in the jade slip, which was an ordinary technique for cultivating to the human rank pure spirit heaven. Xiaohua didn't understand what an earth rank technique was, but after reading the explanation behind the jade slip, he understood. It turned out that soul cultivators cultivated the 3 souls and 6 spirits of a person. There were 3 souls, 1 was the heaven soul, 2 was the earth soul, and 3 was the life soul. There were 6 spirits, 1 was the heavenly charge, 2 was the spiritual wisdom, 3 was the power, 4 was the center, 5 was the essence, and 6 was the hero. According to the 3 spiritual souls and 6 physical souls, soul cultivators divided the realms into 4 stages: human, earth, heaven, and saint, which were collectively known as the 9 heavens of the spirit origin. Among them, the 6 heavens of the spirit soul were surrounding chi heaven, clear spirit heaven, bright ruah heaven, full reality heaven, condensing channel heaven, and calming heart heaven. The 6 heavens of the spirit soul were surrounding chi heaven, clear spirit heaven, bright ruah heaven, full reality heaven, condensing channel heaven, and calming heart heaven. Aura ring and pure spirit heaven were called human rank. Bright ruah heaven and abundant reality heaven were called earth rank. Congealing heaven and heart calming heaven were called heaven rank. Spirit binding heaven, origin void heaven, and silent void heaven were called saint rank. Moreover, it was clearly stated in the jade slip that the human rank was equivalent to the chi refining stage of Taoism, the earth rank was equivalent to the foundation establishment stage and gold core stage, the heaven rank was equivalent to the nascent soul stage and spirit stage, and the saint rank was equivalent to the combination stage, tribulation stage, and Mahayana stage of Taoism. Although there was no explanation in the jade slip, Xiaohua knew that the person who had written this jade slip was no ordinary soul cultivator, but rather a senior from the Taoist sect. Presumably, this senior had secretly learned the technique from Millionaire Mountain, and had written it down in the language of cultivators. Of course, Xiaohua didn't know what the senior's fate was. However, from the fact that the soul cultivator's technique hadn't been circulated on the Dawn Rain continent, it was obvious that his operation hadn't been successful. By the way, Master seems to have said that people have 3 souls and 7 spirits. Why do soul cultivators only cultivate 3 souls and 6 spirits? What if one spirit is missing? When Xiaohua saw this, he already had some doubts. At this time, he returned the jade slip to Sun Shu and asked, "Who knows?" Sun Shu was slightly stunned and said with a smile, The world often says that there are 3 souls and 7 spirits, but some people also say that there are 3 souls and 6 spirits. As for who is right and who is wrong, I don't know. Qian Diheng also scratched his head and said, since soul cultivators specialize in cultivating souls, they must be right, right? This person only has 3 souls and 6 spirits. Anyway, this thing has nothing to do with our cultivation. What's the point of asking clearly? That's true. Xiaohua did not know whether to laugh or cry. This thing really had nothing to do with him. He also did not intend to cultivate this soul cultivation method that was only of mortal rank. Who cares if it was 3 souls and 6 spirits or 3 spirits and 7 spirits? There seemed to be 2 injured cultivators between the mountain peaks ahead. While they were talking, there was some movement between the mountain peaks ahead. Xiaohua's Buddhist sense swept out and found that 2 injured cultivators were hurriedly descending from the sky. Without checking, they drilled into a cave. Chapter 1751. What's going on? Sun Shu and Qian Diheng also noticed and looked at Xiaohua at the same time. Could it be that you 2 senior brothers want to steal the treasure? Xiaohua glanced at the 2 and asked thoughtfully. Haha, look at what junior brother Xiao is saying. We are the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect. How can we be compared to the scum of the cultivation world like the Spirit Husbandry sect? We still have to care about the face of the Imperial Thunder sect. Not to mention that the other party is only at the 10th level of chi refining. Even if they were at the initial level of chi refining, I wouldn't care. Qian Diheng grinned and said casually. Just when Xiaohua was praising in his heart, Qian Diheng unexpectedly said, besides, we don't know what kind of magic treasure they have in their storage bags. Hee, Xiaohua rolled his eyes at him and said with a smile, if you have kindness in your heart, then you have it. Why do you have to find excuses for yourself? If you were as bloodthirsty as the scum of the Spirit Husbandry sect, then I wouldn't want to be associated with you. Hee, Qian Diheng also revealed a trace of an embarrassed smile. In today's cultivation world, killing and stealing treasures is common. If you don't kill a few cultivators and steal a few magic treasures, then you won't be able to call yourself a cultivator of the Dawn Rain continent. I also have no choice. For the face of the Imperial Thunder sect, for my background, I can only wallow in the mire with others. Forget about wallowing in the mire, it's better to stay untainted. Sun Shu pursed her lips and smiled. She was also a kind person and naturally agreed with Qian Diheng's idea. Of course, it's better to stay untainted. But if we meet someone who bullies us, we will deal with them with thunderous methods. Although the Dawn Rain continent is big, we will chase them to the end of the world and kill them. Xiaohua seemed to have thought of something. He narrowed his eyes and said coldly. His voice actually had some deterrence. Qian Diheng's heart slightly trembled when he heard it. He looked at Sun Shu and seemed to have the same feeling, but he didn't know how to respond. A trace of eagerness flashed through Sun Shu's eyes as she said in a low voice, such a pleasant mountain scenery, let's just play casually. Hee, that's right. Xiaohua laughed loudly and took the lead to leave. Looking at the red leaves covering the entire mountain, a ball of joy emerged in his heart. The 3 of them walked very slowly. After 4 hours, they finally got close to the cave where the 2 of them were hiding. At this time, 2 weak spiritual senses swept over the 3 of them. Immediately, a man and a woman flew out of the cave. The woman looked at them coldly with a yellow talisman in her hand and screamed, "You've gone too far. I just wanted to go in and take a look. I didn't offend you. Why did you chase me all the way here? Do you really want us to risk our lives?" Although the female cultivator said that, when she saw that the 3 12th layer aura refining cultivators in front of her were far from being a match for the 2 of them, how could she possibly dare to throw out the yellow talisman in her hand? As for the male cultivator beside the female cultivator, although his face was filled with grief and indignation, he clenched his teeth and didn't speak. His body was slightly tilted as if he was protecting the female cultivator. "Cultivator Yuna!" Qian Diheng was furious. He pointed at the female cultivator and scolded, "No matter what, I'm still a 12th layer aura refining cultivator. How can a 10th layer aura refining cultivator like you not know how to respect me? I'm just here to sightsee. How can I be scolded by you for no reason?" "Sightsee?" The female cultivator was dumbfounded. She looked at the male cultivator beside her. The female cultivator was still reluctant to admit it, but her face clearly showed that she was very surprised. The male cultivator couldn't help but say, "Senior Martial Sister, if they were the ruthless disciples of the splendid sect, how could they just leave like that? People say that 12th layer aura refining cultivators can kill us with a wave of their hand." "That's true." The female cultivator looked at the yellow talisman in her hand and suddenly realized something. 12th layer aura refining cultivators could control magic tools. How could her yellow talisman fight against them? "Humph," the female cultivator stamped her feet and explained, "I just feel that these people aren't good." Then we'll do as Senior Martial Sister thinks." The male cultivator didn't say anything and smiled apologetically. "We'd better heal ourselves." "Heal ourselves? How are we going to heal ourselves? The medicinal pills we brought from the clan have already been used up. There's no place to gather medicinal pills in the surroundings. Where are we going to get medicinal pills?" The female cultivator said angrily. "Since you know, why don't you?" "I'm just being vigilant." The female cultivator glared at him. "I won't go, but I didn't say you can't go." "Huh?" The male cultivator was dumbfounded. "Why aren't you going?" The female cultivator urged. Alas, the male cultivator smiled bitterly. He helplessly activated his flying talisman and flew in the direction Xianxia and the others disappeared. Not long after, Xianxia and the others followed the male cultivator back with indescribable expressions on their faces. Seeing that Xianxia and the others had also returned, the female cultivator's face was very embarrassed. She glared at the male cultivator. Although she didn't say anything, her gaze seemed to want to gouge out a piece of flesh from his face. The male cultivator scratched his head and said helplessly, "Senior Martial Sister, I had no choice. The 3 senior martial brothers said that if I didn't tell them why I was injured and why we came, they wouldn't give me medicinal pills. I had no choice but to bring them here." However, the female cultivator's expression immediately became serious. She bowed and said, "Disciple is Zhongyuahan, and this is Disciple's junior martial brother, Zhonghauren. We are disciples of Meng country's cultivation families. Greetings, 3 senior martial brothers. May I know which family these 3 senior martial brothers are from?" Chapter 1752. Zhong Yuahan's gaze shifted back and forth between Sun Shu and Chen Diheng. These two looked older than Xiaohua and their cultivation levels were the same. They must be Xiaohua's senior martial brothers. However, the two didn't answer. Xiaohua smiled and said, "I am Xiaohua, this is my senior martial brother Chen Diheng, and this is my senior martial sister Sun Shu. We're disciples of Shi's Imperial Thunder Sect." Hearing Xiaohua's words, Zhong Yuahan recalled that Xiaohua was the first to leave. She knew the 3 of them were led by the youngest Xiaohua. She was surprised and cupped her hands. "So it's Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples. This disciple has admired you for a long time." "Hee, we're all cultivators of the Dawn Rain continent. Don't be so polite." Xiaohua waved his hand. "Tell us what fellow Taoists encountered." "Fellow Taoist Zhong, it's not that we're curious. It's just that we're also traveling here. If we know what happened to you, we'll also know." Zhong Yuahan nodded and said, "That's what happened." Afterwards, Zhong Yuahan told them about how the 2 of them were injured. As Xiaohua and the others listened, their faces unconsciously changed. They really didn't expect that Zhong Yuahan and Zhonghauren's encounter was really related to them. It turned out that Zhong Yuahan and Zhonghauren also came to Shi to travel. However, they didn't have a clear goal like Xiaohua and the others. Instead, they went to many places and finally came to the vicinity of Mingxi. Of course, Mingxi was one of the 10 most dangerous places in the Dawn Rain continent. It was far from a place 2 10th-layer qi refining cultivators could go. At first, they just wanted to broaden their horizons, but when they arrived, they found there were actually many cultivators in Mingxi. These cultivators weren't just waiting around the entrance of Mingxi. There were also many cultivators who formed a formation and blocked the entrance. Zhong Yuahan and Zhonghauren were only at the periphery at first, but after a long time, they understood that there was a great change in Mingxi. There was actually a treasure that could help qi refining cultivators advance. The cultivators guarding the entrance of Mingxi were disciples of Splendid Sect, Qiqiao School, and Xuanyan School. They wanted to join hands to block the disciples of other sects so their 3 sects could get the benefits. When Zhong Yuehan saw this, she thought of her family's difficult situation and naturally had an idea. She and Zhong Haoren, who was not very willing, joined in the conflict with the Xianxia sect and the other 2 sections. They wanted to take advantage of the chaos to rush into the netherworld. Just as they approached the entrance, they were discovered by a Xianxia sect disciple. That disciple abandoned his opponent and attacked the 2 of them. The 2 of them used all of their strength to barely block the attack and were only able to escape with injuries. The Xianxia sect disciple didn't plan on letting the 2 of them go and chased after them. Fortunately, the 2 of them were lucky and there were other cultivators rushing in. The Xianxia sect disciple had no choice but to chase after them for a few kilometers before bitterly retreating. Therefore, Zhong Yuehan became a bird that was startled by the twang of a bow. When she saw Xiao Hua and the others appear, she thought that they were disciples of the Xianxia sect. This caused the so-called misunderstanding. Hee, fellow Taoists, are truly bold. Hearing the description of the 2, Xiao Hua's face changed slightly. He smiled bitterly and said, "But no matter what kind of treasure it is, you still have to be alive to enjoy it. Xianxia sect, Qiqiao sect, and Xuanyan school are the 3 great sects of my country of Xi. How can you afford to provoke them? We're all aura-refining disciples. Why don't we have the slightest chance?" Zhong Yuehan said, unconvinced. Tch, Qian Diheng looked at the aristocratic family's disciples who were even more arrogant than him and sneered. "Today, if it weren't for us, if it weren't for Junior Marshal Brother Zhao's kindness, I'm afraid your lives would really be in danger. If worst comes to worst, I'll just die. I already had this awareness when I came out for experiential learning." Zhong Yuehan was still stubborn. "I already told you what happened. Fellow Taoists, can you give us the medicinal pills now?" "Oh, don't be impatient. I have 2 questions. Xiao Hua said with a smile. "Isn't there still some time before the entrance to the netherworld opens? How can it be opened now?" "How would I know? Maybe something has happened inside, and the entrance to the dark mystery has changed." Zhong Yuehan shook her head and said, "The opening of the netherworld entrance will change after a period of time. Maybe now is the time to change." What is the treasure in the netherworld entrance that can allow aura-refining cultivators to advance?" "This." Zhong Yuehan's face was embarrassed. She said in a low voice, "I don't know." Xiao Hua was stunned. Zhong Haoren beside him also said with embarrassment, "Those cultivators only said there was a treasure, but they didn't say what it was." Xiao Hua glanced at Sun Shu. Sun Shu's eyes were also somewhat confused. "I have another question," Xiao Hua asked. "What are the cultivation levels of the disciples guarding the netherworld entrance?" "Naturally, they are aura-refining disciples. Most of them are in the 12th layer of aura-refining." Zhong Yuehan said in a bad mood, "If there are Foundation Establishment seniors, how would I dare to go forward?" Xiao Hua nodded and gave Qian Diheng a meaningful glance. Qian Diheng clapped his hands and took out the healing pills from the Imperial Thunder Sect and handed them to Zhong Yuehan. Zhong Yuehan saw that Xiao Hua did what he said, so she naturally beamed with joy. She told Zhong Haoren to use spirit stones to exchange for the pills. Soon after, she smiled apologetically and said, "I don't know if Senior Brother Qian can give me more pills? These are only enough for me to heal my injuries. The journey back to Meng country is still very long." "Junior Sister Zhong, you don't have a reason. Just now when we met, you spoke so viciously. Now that you have a request from I, you want to take a mile after taking an inch?" Qian Diheng said in a bad mood. "Senior brother, I also came to travel. I also need these pills. If Junior Brother Xiao didn't want to ask you something, I wouldn't exchange these pills with you." Zhong Yuehan's face turned red. She was clever and eloquent, but she wasn't shameless. She could only bite her lips and said in a low voice, "In that case, thank you, Senior Brother Qian. I will take my leave now." Sigh. Xiao Hua looked at the 2 people and scratched his head. He clapped his hands and took out 4 bottles of pills. He threw them in front of Zhong Haoren and said with a smile, "You 2 should quickly find a place to heal your injuries. Consider these pills as the fate of our meeting. See you later." After saying that, he flew towards Ming Shi. Sun Shu and Qian Diheng also didn't delay. They cupped their hands and said, "Farewell." Then they also flew away. This. Zhong Haoren held the 4 jade bottles in his hands. He looked grateful and said, "Senior brother Xiao, don't go. This little brother will give you spirit stones." Dang. Zhong Yuehan raised her head and knocked on his head. She scolded, "You idiot, you don't want the things people give you? We don't have enough spirit stones. I'm afraid we can't pay for these 4 jade bottles of pills." But Zhong Haoren handed the jade bottles to his senior sister and said with grievance, "Senior sister, the Imperial Thunder sect is a cultivation sect that is not inferior to the Magnificent sect. How can their disciple be so humble and kind? This kind of broad-minded cultivator is a good friend for you and me. How can you take advantage of him? These are 4 bottles of pills from the Imperial Thunder sect. Humph. What are you going to use to return the favor? These pills are very precious in your eyes, but in Xiaohua's eyes, they are obviously worthless. Otherwise, how could he give them to you so easily?" "Senior sister, you can't say that. As the saying goes, a drop of water should be returned with a gushing spring. We must remember fellow Taoist Zhao's favor. If there is a chance in the future, we must return it. It doesn't matter whether he cares or not." Zhong Haoren said with a face full of worship, "Moreover, didn't you see this senior brother Xiao? He is so young, but his cultivation is actually higher than his 2 senior brothers. Those 2 senior brothers still have to listen to him. Humph, he looks young. That's because he took something to preserve his youth. Otherwise, how could he still look 18 years old when he is at the 12th level of qi refinement? Senior sister, even if he took something to preserve his youth and we can't see his exact age. But senior brother Qian also calls him junior brother. How old can he be? Maybe he is even younger than you and me. Tisk, how is that possible?" Zhong Xiuhan curled her lips. She seemed to feel that it was not impossible and immediately changed the topic. "We should hurry and heal our injuries. After we recover, we will contact third granduncle and the others and return to Meng together." "Yes, senior sister is right." Zhong Haoren nodded. "I wonder if third granduncle and the others found the Qian Mo secret stone." "Don't mention the Qian Mo secret stone. If it wasn't for it, would our spirit stones have been stolen?" Zhong Xiuhan said angrily. "Can we not mention it? The magic tool that the clan refined was prepared to be an ancestral magic tool. Can we not use the Qian Mo secret stone? Hurry and heal your injuries." Zhong Xiuhan glared and a jade bottle flew into Zhong Haoren's arms. The 2 of them then activated their flying talismans and flew into the cave. In the distance, Xiaohua slightly frowned. He looked at Sun Shu, who also seemed to be thinking about something, and asked, "Senior sister Sun, do you think the treasure that the Zhong siblings talked about and the thing we are looking for is the same?" Sun Shu seemed to have thought about it carefully and shook her head. "In Ai's opinion, they are 2 different things." She then looked at Qian Diheng and said, "We had an agreement beforehand. When we arrived at Mingxi, we would clearly explain the ins and outs of this matter. Since senior sister Kuan is not here at this time, it would be better not to say it. However, junior brother Xiao can rest assured that the thing we are looking for is only effective for shaping the body and for practicing the lightning escape technique. I have not heard that it is effective for all aura refining disciples to increase their realm." Xiaohua slightly nodded. He understood that Mingxi was one of the 10 most dangerous places in the Xiaoyu continent. If there was some kind of treasure that could increase the realm of aura refining disciples, it would not be strange. However, this treasure appeared at the wrong time. It actually conflicted with their plan. He was afraid that it would be a bit troublesome. "Haha," Qian Diheng laughed. "Isn't this just right? We can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We can get that thing and also the treasure to increase our realm. Isn't senior brother Qian too confident and too greedy?" Xiaohua laughed. With junior brother Xiao here, and Xianghua sect having no foundation establishment seniors, who is afraid of who? Qian Diheng's smile became even brighter than before. Xiaohua's heart was also moved, but he still said, "Let's wait for senior sister Kuan to come back and tell us the ins and outs of the matter. We will go and inquire about the origin of that treasure before making a decision." Chapter 1753. Kuan Fei Yen had only met up with the 3 of them at night. His expression was a little tired, and there was a rather gloomy look in his eyes. Xiao Hua and the others didn't ask much when they saw it. Only Sun Shu asked if things were going smoothly. She received a forced laugh from Kuan Fei Yan, and everyone found a place to rest. The next morning, Kuan Fian's expression returned to normal. As the four of them flew towards Mingxi, Sun Shu also told Xiao Hua what they were looking for. That thing is called Zhongyao milk? Xiao Hua frowned and asked curiously, what does this thing have to do with lightning escape? Qian Diheng smiled and said, Junior brother Xiao, as for what it is, we also don't know. However, a senior of my Imperial Thunder sect obtained a drop of Zhongyao's milk in this dark mystery, and used it to temper his body. Only then did he achieve great success in the lightning escape technique. Therefore, the upper echelons of the Imperial Thunder sect have this secret. It is said that the current sect master also came to Mingxi when he was young and obtained half a drop of Zhongyao milk. Only then did he advance in lightning escape. Kuan Fian added. Unfortunately, this Zhongyao milk is too rare. In the early years, I don't know how many outstanding disciples of my Imperial Thunder sect came here, but I have never heard of anyone who had such luck. Sun Shu smiled bitterly and said, moreover, 10 people came here and only 2 returned. Over time, this secret really became a secret. Using Zhongyao milk to refine the body? Xiao Hua thought to himself, why does it sound similar to refining the body with fire essence flame crystal? If it's the same, it's not that special that I can easily master lightning escape. After that, Xiao Hua asked, is there a special technique for refining the body with Zhongyao milk? Hee, of course. Sun Shu clapped her hands and took out 3 jade slips and handed them to Xiao Hua and the others. She said, I have done my homework long ago. Senior sister and junior brother, please take a look at this body refining technique. Kuan Fian and Qian Diheng took it and also clapped their hands. They took out a jade slip and handed it to Xiao Hua and said, this is what I got. Junior brother, take a look and see if it's the same. Xiao Hua took the 3 jade slips and immersed his divine sense in them to carefully read through them. He nodded slightly. The records in these 3 jade slips are mostly the same, so they should come from the same source. As he spoke, he took out 3 blank jade slips and copied them before handing them to Sun Shu. Sun Shu looked at them separately and nodded. Great. Kuan Fian clapped his hands and smiled. Since that's the case, then there must be some Zhongyao milk. Let's see how lucky we are. That's not all. Qian Diheng said with a smile. It said that there are treasures inside that can help Qi refining disciples advance. Don't you and I have 2 chances? What treasure? Kuan Fei Yan's eyes lit up as he asked in surprise. Didn't you find a fellow Taoist you were familiar with to exchange? How come you still don't know about Mingxi? Qian Diheng asked curiously. That fellow Taoist I met didn't come from Mingxi. How would he know? Kuan Fian said with a smile. Sun Shu told him what had happened. A trace of relief flashed across Kuan Fian's face, but then he said angrily, Xianghua sect, Qiqiao sect and Xuanyan school are too shameless. Last time when junior brother Xiao became a disciple, they seemed to have blocked the mountain path to Thunderclap Peak. Now they're blocking the entrance to Mingxi. How hateful. Yeah, if it's a disciple of a sect, then it's easy to deal with. We might be able to enter if we try our best. Sun Shu was a bit worried. This is 3 sects working together, the 4 of us. We're not strong enough. Aren't there disciples from other sects? We'll talk about it when we get there. Qian Diheng said with a cold smile. Let's act according to the circumstances. The 4 of them all had the same idea and flew towards Mingxi. A few days later, Xiao Hua and the others felt that the spiritual qi of heaven and earth around them was beginning to become dense, and there was a heavy feeling in the midst of this density. This heaviness wasn't caused by their meridians absorbing the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, but it seemed to come from their hearts. In addition, when they looked up, they saw that in the distance, the sky was incomparably gloomy. In the thick darkness, there was a kind of grayish yellow. Countless funnel-like shapes hung between heaven and earth, still and gorgeous, appearing incomparably magnificent. This is Mingxi? Xiao Hua saw this strange scene and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air, slowing down his flying speed. Although he already knew the general situation of Mingxi from the ancient records of Imperial Thunder Sect, seeing it with his own eyes still shocked him. Sun Shu was right next to him. When he saw Xiao Hua's shock, a trace of a smile appeared on his face, and he said, Mingxi is not the same as the other 9 danger zones of Dawn Rain Continent. Mingxi originally meant the Eye of the Netherworld. It is said that this place is connected to the 9 underworlds. Those hurricanes are all blown from the 9 heavens and directly reach Mingxi. It is extremely powerful. In Mingxi, not only can we not get close to the big eye of the wind, we also have to be careful of the small eye of the wind. The endless suction force inside can suck a cultivator in as long as they get close to it. Unless you have an extremely powerful ability to escape, there is no way to survive. That's not all. Sun Shu's eyes narrowed slightly, and he said with a smile, It is precisely because the wind of the netherworld is strong that the space in Mingxi is unstable. Some places even have spatial cracks. Most of these spatial rifts are temporary, and their locations are generally fixed. However, there are also extremely powerful ones that randomly appear in various parts of the netherworld. These spatial rifts are rather fatal and are the greatest danger in the netherworld. Then where could Zhong Lu be? Xiao Hua frowned slightly, secretly calculating in his heart. He couldn't think of where Zhong Lu would appear in this Mingxi. If I could think of it, Sun Shu and the others wouldn't have brought me here. Anyone can find where Zhong Lu is. Xiao Hua immediately laughed inwardly. Qian Diheng continued to explain, It is also because of the instability of this space that people can't casually enter Mingxi. They can only enter through a stable entrance, otherwise, it is extremely easy to be sucked into the eye of the wind and unable to reincarnate. The space around the entrance of Mingxi should also have the wind of the netherworld. Moreover, it should only be stable or weakened during this period of time that people can enter. Kuan Fian said with a smile, Now that the entrance has opened ahead of time, there must be a change in the wind of the netherworld. Let's go. This young master wants to see just why the Xianghua sect, Qiqiao sect, and Xuanyan school are so tyrannical. The treasures that can raise the level of qi refining are naturally nurtured by the heavens and earth, and are obtained by those who are fated to obtain them. What right do they have to block the entrance? When Xiao Hua was chased by the Foundation establishment disciples of the 3 sects, he had long wanted to take revenge. Now that he heard that only qi-refining disciples were at the entrance of Mingxi, wasn't this the perfect opportunity for him to bully others? Before they could fly to Mingxi, they saw several qi-refining cultivators, like Zhong Xiuhan and Zhong Haoren, with injuries all over their bodies, fleeing in panic. Chapter 1754. There weren't any mountain ranges in the dark mystery, only a few short hills. The hills were covered with short plants. These plants were very strange and had many branches. They were grayish-black in color and didn't have any leaves. The hills were also a kind of burnt yellow, reflecting the grayish-yellow color of the horizon, giving people a sense of oppression. Countless tornadoes formed into pillars. The closer they were to the center of the dark mystery, the thicker they became. As for the dark mystery, it was surrounded by wind pillars that were several tens of meters wide. At the entrance of the dark mystery, there was a gap of several tens of meters wide between 2 wind pillars. Looking at the gap, it was as if there was one less wind pillar. At that moment, there were several tens of cultivators in different attire. They were divided into 3 groups, each holding the same magic tool in their hands. They formed an orderly formation and floated in the air above the gap. Beside these groups of cultivators, there were a few other cultivators flying sporadically. Although their attire was the same, the magic tools in their hands weren't the same. Several of them were holding rare magic treasures. There was an extremely strong wind at the entrance of the dark mystery, but there wasn't any dust floating in the wind. Perhaps it was because the wind had been blowing for many years, so the dust had long since been blown away. The entire ground was covered in a bright yellow light. The wind that covered the heavens and earth seemed to be able to blow everything away, but it was only able to blow away the clothes of the cultivators from the Xianghua sect. It wasn't able to blow away the scorching greed of the several tens of scattered cultivators in the air. That's right. When Xiao Hua and the others arrived at the dark mystery, the 2 sides had just finished a conflict and were resting. The disciples of the 3 sects, led by Xianghua Zong, flew in the air. Their eyes didn't look into the distance, but instead, they took out medicinal pills from their bags of holding and consumed them. The eyes of the disciples flying outside the formation shone brightly. They released their divine sense and paid attention to the movements on the other side. When they saw Xiao Hua and the others flying over, They just glanced at them and didn't pay too much attention to them. Looking at the scattered cultivators across from the three sects, they were gathered in groups of 2s and 3s. While taking medicinal pills, they were whispering to each other, as if they were discussing their next move. About 30 meters away from these cultivators, there were another dozen or so cultivators. These dozen or so cultivators were dressed differently, but their faces were gloomy and their emotions were somewhat agitated. They seemed to be debating about something. Before Xianxia and the others could see clearly, one of the cultivators flew out from inside. He flew in front of the group of cultivators, waved his hand, and turned around to fly in the direction Xianxia and the others had come from. Following this cultivator's gesture, a dozen or so disciples also flew out from the group of cultivators and left with that cultivator. Senior apprentice brother Can Shiming Can? Seeing a few cultivators turn around, Chen Diheng exclaimed in surprise. Isn't that right? It really is senior apprentice brother Can. Kuan Fian's face also showed a trace of surprise. Sun Shu's eyes turned, and he couldn't hide the astonishment on his face. He pointed his finger and said, "Look, there are other Imperial Thunder Sect disciples. I didn't expect." At this time, the dozen or so disciples just happened to fly past Xianxia and the others. Everyone's eyes naturally fell on Xianxia and the others. When Can Shiming saw Xianxia and the others, his face showed joy. He waved his hand, said a few words to a few people beside him, and quickly flew over. At the same time, 3 Imperial Thunder Sect disciples also flew out from the group of cultivators. Junior apprentice brother Qian, junior apprentice sister Kuan, you also came? Can Shiming obviously didn't know Sun Shu and Xianxia. When he greeted Chen Diheng and Kuan Fian, he smiled and said to the 2 people, "Which Thunder Palace disciples are these 2 junior apprentice brothers from?" "Hee, this is Sun Shu from Sun Lei Palace, senior apprentice sister Sun." Chen Diheng thought for a moment, and introduced according to the order of age. Before he could introduce Xianxia, the other 3 Imperial Thunder Sect disciples also came over, and all of them smiled and said, "Great, so it's junior apprentice sister from Sun Lei Palace, what a strong support." Zhen Lei Palace, Zhen Yuhui, Zhen Zhenqing greets junior apprentice sister Sun. Can Lei Palace, Can Peng greets junior apprentice sister Sun. The other 3 people came forward to greet Sun Shu. Sun Shu obviously knew the 3 people, and 2 of them also saluted. Chen Diheng and Kuan Fian also quickly saluted. Then the 4 people looked at Xianxia with a smile and said, "Which Thunder Palace disciple is this little junior apprentice brother from?" "Hee, this little brother is Xianxia from Sun Lei Palace. Greetings 4 senior apprentice brothers." Xianxia saw Sun Shu and the other 2 and knew that the 4 people in front of him should be famous senior apprentice brothers of Imperial Thunder Sect. He didn't dare to neglect, and went forward to salute. "Xianxia, Sun Lei Palace?" Hearing this, Can Shiming's face was slightly shocked, and then he came to a realization, and a smile appeared on his face again, and he said, "I was wondering which Thunder Palace's outstanding disciple is it, so it's junior apprentice brother Xiao." The other 3 disciples also smiled, and looked at each other, and the disciple named Zhen Yuhui said, "Junior apprentice brother Zhao's reputation has spread through the entire Imperial Thunder Sect after the Feather Immortal Assembly. The 4 of us are also disciples who participated in the Feather Immortal Assembly 10 years ago, but none of us are as famous as junior apprentice brother Xiao." "Hee, please excuse me, excuse me." Xianxia didn't want to know whether the reputation they mentioned was good or bad, and only cupped his hands and said with a smile, "So the 4 of you are the representatives of Imperial Thunder Sect in the last Feather Immortal Assembly, please excuse me. It's not your fault that you don't know. When we participated in the Feather Immortal Assembly, you hadn't entered Imperial Thunder Sect yet." Can Shiming smiled and waved his hand, and said very generously, "And maybe this time junior apprentice brother Xiao will get Mingxi's treasure, and can become a Foundation Establishment senior again." "Hee, thank you for your kind words. Senior apprentice brother Can." Seeing the strange smiles on the faces of Zhen Yuhui and the other 2, Xianxia knew what the 4 of them were thinking, and only replied warmly. Afterwards, Can Shiming ignored Xianxia and said to Kuan Fian, "Junior apprentice sister Kuan, it's great that the 4 of you have come, you have really increased the strength of Imperial Thunder Sect, and we have hope of breaking through the defense line of Xianghua Sect, Qiqiao Sect, and Xuanyan School." Kuan Fian glanced at Xianxia and said in a low voice, "Senior apprentice brother Can, what treasure is inside Mingxi?" We don't know what's going on. Hee, we're the same as you, we all came here after receiving the news, but the disciples of Xianxia sect are very tight-lipped about what treasure is inside, and they didn't reveal a single word. The cultivators on our side are the same as us. We only know that there is a treasure that can help qi refining disciples advance, and for us, it is an opportunity to build our foundation. Humph. Do you think we don't know just because the disciples of Xianxia sect don't say it? Xianxia sneered. If there isn't a treasure that can help qi refining disciples advance, why are there only qi refining disciples here? Moreover, they don't dare to let us in? Forget it, let's not talk about it. You all should go back. Kan Shiming waved his hand and said, as long as we attack, everything will be clear. Oh, senior apprentice sister Kuan. You all should also enter with junior apprentice brother Zhen and the others. Kuan Fian's face showed a hint of hesitation, and he looked at Xiao Hua. Senior apprentice brother Kan, we just arrived, and we are a bit tired, so let's take a rest first, and it will be convenient for us to see the situation clearly. What do you think? Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, and do as you wish. Kan Shiming's face showed impatience, and he said, if we can enter the formation early, then let's enter the formation early. The more effort we put in, the more benefits we can get when we attack Ming Shi. After he finished speaking, he flew forward, and discussed with the other 10 people. Zhen Jianqing and the others said, junior apprentice brother Qian, you all should quickly take a rest, the attack is about to start. Let's not talk about this round. Quickly come and help in the next round. Okay, I understand. Qian Diheng said with a smile. After the 3 of them flew away, Sun Shu said in a low voice, junior apprentice brother Xiao, what should we do? Let's take a look first. Xiao Hua landed on the ground, and so did Sun Shu and the others. Sure enough, in the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, Kan Shiming and the others scattered, flying to different places. Clearly, they were the leaders of the various sections. Zhen Jianqing's group, and the dozens of other cultivators all surrounded Kan Shiming, quietly waiting for his orders. After a while, these cultivators scattered again. Bam! An attacking yellow talisman was shot out from somewhere. Roar! The half of the Imperial Thunder School's disciples on the left all roared, and they either waved their yellow talismans or their magical artifacts. Colorful lights appeared from their hands, and they all attacked the Imperial Thunder School's disciples that were guarding Ming Shi's entrance. Whoosh! Similar sounds rang out. Although the Imperial Thunder School's, 7 skill schools, and Xuanyan School's disciples all had different spells and hand gestures, they all waved their magical artifacts in unison. Instantly, 3 different colored lights flew out in unison, welcoming the attacks from the Imperial Thunder School's disciples. The attacks from the Imperial Thunder School's disciples were originally very orderly, but compared to the attacks from the Imperial Thunder School's disciples, it was very uneven. Even the lights from their attacks were divided into 2, and they were not as orderly as the attacks from the Imperial Thunder School's disciples. Moreover, the Imperial Thunder School's disciples were all using their magical artifacts, so the lights from their attacks were very uniform. On the other hand, the attacks from the Imperial Thunder School's disciples were much inferior. However, no matter how heterogeneous the lights were, they were still very powerful, comparable to the full power attack of several foundation-building cultivators. Ayo! So this is the so-called group attack and group defense. Seeing the coordinated attacks from the Xianghua and the other cultivators, Xiaohua suddenly realized, these dozens of qi refining cultivators are using their magical artifacts or yellow talismans to attack at the same time. They can actually compare to a foundation-building cultivator's attack. Moreover, they can use both offensive and defensive spells at the same time, so they have an advantage over a single foundation-building cultivator. This is also the biggest advantage that cultivation sects have over cultivation aristocratic families, and even more so, over individual cultivators. And this is only the qi refining disciples. If foundation-building disciples or golden core disciples use their magical artifacts or magic treasures to cast the same spell, then, what would it be like? Xiao Hua thought, and a pensive expression unconsciously appeared on his face. Rumble! The attacks from the 2 sides finally collided. The sound of the collision reverberated through heaven and earth, covering the sound of the wind that had been whimpering all this time. Xiao Hua squinted his eyes and carefully observed. It was very obvious that the Imperial Thunder School's disciples were at a disadvantage. The most powerful attacks were blocked, and the majority of the attacks were destroyed by the Shanghuazong's attack, and some were even counterattacked. Pa! Another transmission sounded. The Imperial Thunder School's disciples also moved. Just like the disciples on the left, they attacked at the same time. Chapter 1755. The right side of the Imperial Thunder Sect was obviously more powerful than the left side. The spells they used immediately shattered the attacks of the Xianxia sect disciples, and they took advantage of the situation to attack the other side. However, the Xianxia sect disciple didn't panic at all. He waved the magic tool in his hand again and cast the same spell. Although it was much slower than the Imperial Thunder Sect disciple's attack, its power was slightly stronger and blocked the Imperial Thunder Sect disciple's attack. Good, now is the time. Xiao Hua saw the tired faces of the Xianxia sect disciples and was overjoyed. He shouted, "Just one more attack, and the defense of the Xianxia sect disciples will be broken." But when he scanned the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples with his divine sense, he couldn't help but sigh. The Imperial Thunder Sect disciples were also tired, and their spiritual power consumption was similar to the Xianxia sect disciples. Even if they attacked half more, it wouldn't work. Sigh, I'm afraid it's always like this. If the enemy is strong, I'm strong. If the enemy is weak, I'm weak too. It's always a stalemate, and the Xianxia sect disciples have always had a slight advantage. Sun Shu also noticed it and said in a low voice, "And now, even if we join Senior Brother Kan's side, the spiritual power of the four of us compared to dozens or even hundreds of people is like a drop of water compared to a stream." "Hey, look over there." Kuan Fian pointed with his finger. At the edge of the battlefield, several disciples activated their magic treasures and attacked in the direction of the Xianxia sect. The power of the magic treasures was naturally different. The heaven and earth spirit qi gathered to form a gust of wind, and the light it emitted was also tens of feet wide. But before those magic weapons landed, the disciples outside the formation also waved their hands, and different magic weapons appeared in the air to meet the attack. The power of those magic weapons was not inferior to the opponent, and the brilliance of those magic weapons was also dozens of feet. Sigh, no need to watch. Qian Diheng sighed. Both sides have magic weapons, and no one is stronger than the other. It's still a draw. Sure enough, the collision of the magic weapons wasn't small, but they were still evenly matched. Soon, it was covered by the woo-woo sound of the wind. Hee. Xiao Hua saw that the magic weapons of both sides only attacked once and then stopped. He already understood and couldn't help but laugh. Hey! Junior apprentice brother Xiao, you already have a good plan? Sun Shu could not help being pleasantly surprised when he saw the situation. It can't be. Junior brother Xiao, are you really that fierce? Qian Diheng was also overjoyed as he said, "There are dozens or even hundreds of qi refinement disciples, compared to the 4 disciples of Spirit Husbandry sect." Shoo! Sun Shu glared at Qian Diheng and scolded, "Junior brother Qian, you can't speak carelessly." I won't. Qian Diheng covered his mouth and laughed. "It's just that, if Junior brother Xiao breaks the array of the Divine Splendor sect, how many benefits will my Imperial Thunder sect get? Haggling is your specialty. This little brother isn't proficient at it." Xiao Hua smiled, appearing very confident. Sun Shu frowned and whispered, "What's the point of haggling with them? If Junior Martial Brother Zhao's magical powers are outstanding, why would we care about them when we rush over?" But right at this moment, Kan Peng waved his hand from afar, indicating for Xiao Hua and the rest to hurry over. Seeing Xiao Hua and the rest standing there without moving, he couldn't help but feel annoyed. Then, seeing Qian Diheng flying over to find Kan Shiming, he immediately flew out from the crowd and blocked Qian Diheng's path, scolding, "Junior brother Qian, why aren't you coming over to help? What are you going to do?" He actually acted like a senior brother. Qian Diheng smiled apologetically and said, "This little brother has some urgent matters to discuss with senior brother Kan." "Humph, are you all going to leave?" Kan Peng said angrily, "Although we are at a disadvantage now, there are disciples from various sects rushing over. Since you all are here, the others will also come. But if everyone is like you all, hiding at the side and watching the situation, and then running away when the situation is bad, will my Imperial Thunder sect still have any face left?" Senior brother Kan. The smile on Qian Diheng's face disappeared as he said coldly, "We are all disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect. Although you are older than this little brother, This little brother has to respect you as a senior brother. You can eat pills blindly, but you can't speak blindly. When did this little brother say that we were going to hide? Just now, senior brother Can asked you all to join the attack, and you all said that you wanted to rest. If you are not lazy, then you want to sit on top of the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Can Pang sneered and said, "In these few days, I have seen many of your actions. I naturally can't care about others, but you are a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. I can't ignore you." Senior brother Qian, why are you not looking for senior brother Can? What are you doing here? Xiaohua flew over and asked. What does it have to do with you? Stand aside. Can Pang scolded. Although you are in the limelight at the Feather Immortal Assembly, you are still our junior brother. When the senior brothers are talking, how can you speak? Senior brother Can. Kuan Fian also flew over and called out uneasily. If you still think that you are a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect, then hurry up and listen to senior brother Can's arrangement. Come to the Imperial Thunder Sect's formation, and contribute a little to us breaking through the Xianxia sect's defense. When we enter the netherworld in the future, we can also share some benefits with you. If you don't want to help, then hurry up and leave. But, when I return to the Imperial Thunder Sect, I will definitely report this to the elders in the sect. Are you crazy? Qian Diheng rolled his eyes. You are older, and you have cultivated to the 12th level of qi refining earlier than us, but I don't have any reason to listen to your arrangement, right? Even if you don't listen to my arrangement, senior brother Can Shiming's words. You don't want to listen? He is the oldest among the 8 disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect, and his cultivation is the highest. Can Pang sneered. Don't forget the sect's rules. Of course I know the sect's rules. Qian Diheng was so angry that he laughed. If you say that senior brother Can Shiming is older, I have nothing to say. But if you say that his cultivation is the highest, I don't think so. If senior brother Can's cultivation is not high, who else has a high cultivation? Can Pang laughed. You? Kuan Fian? Sun Shu? Or our junior brother Xiao who failed to build his foundation? Naturally. Qian Diheng gave a thumbs up. Just as he was about to speak, he heard someone from Can Shiming's group in the distance send a message. I don't want to talk nonsense with you. Can Pang didn't dare to be negligent. He quickly flew back to the group and said, if you don't want to be punished by the sect's rules, then hurry up and follow me. I just won't go. Qian Diheng showed his temper, and said stubbornly. You. Can Pang was so angry that his nose was crooked. A bunch of old fools who take advantage of their seniority. Sun Shu also scolded, you haven't even built your foundation, and you're already using your seniority to pressure people. If you build your foundation, won't you let us directly fight with the disciples of the Xianxia sect? Chapter 1756. Sigh, there are always some people who don't understand the situation, don't know when to advance or retreat. Xiaohua, who had been silent all this while, waved his hand and said, the next wave of attack is about to begin. All of you, come with me. We will go in by ourselves. Kuan Fian said in shock, Junior brother Xiao, aren't we going to greet senior brother Can Shiming? Sigh, senior sister Kuan, didn't you see the Xianxia sect disciples waiting for an exhausted enemy to arrive? Xiaohua sighed and said, they've been in a deadlock for who knows how long. At this time, no foundation building seniors have appeared, so I still have some chances. If a foundation building cultivator appears, our plan will certainly be ruined. Yes. Qian Diheng clapped and said, it is to let those Canlei Palace disciples see that cultivation isn't determined by age. Junior brother Xiao, can you do it? Sun Shu didn't care about anything else and only asked with concern. A few months ago, you faced 4 spirit husbandry sect disciples. It was already difficult. These are dozens of Qi refinement level 12 disciples. Why don't we follow senior brother Can to the left? That place is unknown to others. Only I know. Also, if we can't do it this time, we can just wait for the next opening. We really have no reason. Without waiting for Sun Shu to finish, Qian Diheng hurriedly said, Senior sister Kuan, are you sure? That thing. We don't even know if we are fated to get it. Now that there are other treasures in the netherworld, If we can get it first, it will be a great opportunity. Don't say anything first. Let's see what junior brother Xiao decides. Kuan Fian looked at Xiao Hua and said softly. Sun Shu and Qian Dihing didn't say anything and waited for Xiao Hua to speak. A smile appeared on Xiao Hua's face, and his not-so-handsome face instantly revealed a strong sense of confidence. He laughed and said, "The last time I faced the spirit husbandry sect disciples was several months ago. Now, I have improved again. Furthermore, I'm not dealing with dozens of spirit husbandry sect disciples alone. Aren't there hundreds of other disciples behind us?" But, Sun Shu hurriedly said, "Junior brother Xiao, you are a Qi refinement level 12 cultivator. If you don't build your foundation, even if you cultivate for more than 10 years, your magic power and skills won't improve much." Not waiting for Sun Shu to finish talking, Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "These little brothers all know. I know what to do. All of you, release your Dharma artifacts and protect yourselves. Just follow behind me." Okay. Hearing Xiao Hua's words, Sun Shu's worry was slightly relieved. He took out the lightning lock with some doubt. After a short while, the cultivators of the Imperial Thunder Sect finished their rest. Can Shi Ming and the others flew back to their respective disciples. Seeing Xiao Hua and the others standing far away, a trace of anger appeared on their faces. That Kan Pang whispered something into his ear, making his face even more gloomy. Pah! Another yellow talisman flew into the air. This time, it was the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples' turn to attack first. Just like the previous round, many yellow talismans and magic tools were taken out. Everyone tried their best to cooperate and attack the three sects' disciples at the same time. Similarly, the disciples of the three sects of the Xianghua sect fought back again. Clearly, in Xiao Hua's eyes, this round of attacks was a bit weaker than the previous round. What was different from before was that after the Imperial Thunder Sect's cultivators finished attacking, the cultivators with Dharma artifacts didn't attack again. Instead, they quietly floated in the air. Clearly, their magic power wasn't enough to support 2 consecutive attacks. At this moment, just when the cultivators from both sides had stopped and were taking medicinal pills to recover their magic power, Xiao Hua moved. A 1-foot-long bronze seal was raised in the air by Xiao Hua. The brilliance of several tens of meters, the majestic aura, and the whirlwind formed from the surrounding heaven and earth spirit chi that was instantly sucked in. All of these clearly indicated that this was a magic treasure. However, the reaction of the three sects of the Xianghua sect was beyond Xiao Hua's expectations. Although everyone's eyes were somewhat surprised, no one was extremely shocked. Aside from a disciple flying outside the formation who slapped his hand and a fist-sized pearl flew into the air, everyone else did what they were supposed to do. On the other hand, the 4 disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect revealed slight astonishment. However, that astonishment soon turned into disdain. Even Kan Pang had a trace of schadenfreude on his face. Hee, wonderful. Seeing this, Xiao Hua was very happy. He transmitted his voice. 3 senior martial brothers, take out your Dharma artifacts and follow behind me. Wait for me to transmit my voice again. When you see an opening, rush in. I understand. Junior martial brother. Be careful. Sun Shu and the others nodded. Seeing that the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples' Dharma artifact flew into the air, it immediately expanded to several feet in size. The resplendent brilliance was like a sharp sword that pierced through the hurricane and crashed towards the cloud-suppressing seal. Go! Seeing this, Xiao Hua's eyes narrowed. He grabbed with his hand and the cloud-suppressing seal suddenly expanded to more than twice its original size. It smashed towards the pearl like a mountain. Break, the opposing cultivator was also unconvinced. His face revealed a bit of confidence as he spoke the truth. Rumble. The 2 Dharma artifacts collided in an instant. The sound was actually not inferior to the collision of several Dharma artifacts just now. The Imperial Thunder Sect's disciple's face suddenly turned pale. His body couldn't stand steadily in the air and fell down. He fell straight down for 10 feet before stabilizing his body. Looking at the pearl again, it was actually hit by the cloud-suppressing seal and fell down 10 feet. Its brilliance was abnormally dim. Go! Xiao Hua rubbed his hands again. Magic power spread out. The cloud-suppressing seal made a loud buzzing sound and expanded to a height of 10 feet. Moreover, as the cloud-suppressing seal expanded, A cloud of several tens of feet appeared from the bottom of the cloud-suppressing seal. The power of this cloud-suppressing seal seems to be a lot stronger than it was a few months ago. Chen Diheng was somewhat stunned as he looked at the cloud-suppressing seal that was shining brightly in the hurricane. He seemed to understand what Xiao Hua said just now. Naturally, this was the result of Xiao Hua's several months of tempering his Buddhist awareness. He also practiced using the jade slip that Zhen Qing gave him to control the Dharma artifacts. Xiao Hua was now able to use the cloud-suppressing seal as a Dharma artifacts attack like a foundation establishment cultivator. He didn't need to purely use the Dharma artifact's strength as the most basic attack like before. Following Xiao Hua's finger, the cloud of heaven and earth spiritual energy below the cloud-suppressing seal immediately pressed down like a mountain. Although it wasn't as heavy as the cloud-suppressing seal's main body, the cloud-suppressing seal's boundless karmic power had already suppressed the 6-7 skills sect disciples who were floating in the air to the point that they almost couldn't breathe. When the cloud was only several tens of feet away from the cultivators, the 6 cultivators finally woke up as if they had just woken up from a dream. Unable to conceal the shock between their brows, they waved their hands and the Dharma artifacts in their hands flew out. They did their utmost to stimulate the magic power produced by the pills they had just refined, wanting to block the cloud-suppressing seal. Rumble. A series of sounds rang out as 6 different colored lights struck the cloud. Immediately after, the 6 Dharma artifacts' main bodies also collided. Naturally, Dharma artifacts couldn't be compared to Dharma artifacts. This was the general understanding of everyone present. However, since it was a Dharma artifact used by an aura-refining disciple, then it must have been controlled by a special method. Perhaps, like Fan Tong, it must have been controlled by the power of his bloodline. This caused the Dharma artifact's power to be greatly reduced. Even if the 6 Dharma artifacts couldn't contend against Xiao Hua's Dharma artifact, they could still destroy the cloud of the cloud-suppressing seal. They could even block the cloud-suppressing seal's main body. This situation had already been proven more than 10 times in the past few days. However, when the brilliance of the 6 Dharma artifacts dimmed, the cloud-suppressing seal's cloud merely swayed for a moment before rapidly trembling and dispersing half of its form. Everyone's eyes widened as an extremely absurd feeling arose spontaneously in their hearts. However, when they looked again, the 4 disciples beside the 6 Dharma artifacts didn't dare to be negligent. They hastily brandished their Dharma artifacts and forcefully destroyed the remaining cloud. The cloud-suppressing seals churning in the air once again let out a rumbling sound and once again shook a large cloud of several tens of feet in size. Everyone's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Is this really a Dharma artifact used by an aura-refining cultivator? Everyone suddenly realized. How could an aura-refining cultivator's Dharma artifact be able to mimic an attack? Wasn't it already burning incense to be able to use the main body of the Dharma artifact to attack? However, the cloud-suppressing seal's cloud didn't care about the 7 skills sect disciples' fluctuating moods and continued to rapidly smash down. It was at least twice as fast as when Xiao Hua used the cloud-suppressing seal's main body. Previously, the 10-7 skills sect disciples used their Dharma artifacts to block the first cloud. Their Dharma artifacts were almost completely exhausted. When they saw the second cloud with the same power smashing down, their faces were already ashen. They didn't doubt that when this cotton-like cloud fell down, it would really smash their bodies into minced meat like a mountain. Shift. At this moment, the 7 skills sect disciples heard a command. Their hearts were filled with joy. Their bodies swayed as they flew towards a certain location. At the same time, other disciples also flew towards their location. As soon as these disciples stabilized themselves in the air, they immediately waved their hands and 10 Dharma artifacts of different shapes and colors attacked the cloud. Amazing, as expected of well-trained disciples from a famous sect. Xiao Hua couldn't help but inwardly sigh as he watched the 10 disciples switch positions and attack in perfect coordination. At the same time, he stretched out his hands and continuously rubbed them together. His entire body's spiritual energy followed the spell seals and struck the cloud-suppressing seal. One cloud after another was formed and continuously smashed towards the same spot where the 7 skills sect disciples had formed their formation. Ah! The 7 skills sect disciple was dumbfounded. As he circulated his spiritual energy, he howled in agony in his heart. Whose disciple is this? Quick, Imperial Thunder Sect's Ken Shiming was the first to recover from his shock. He hurriedly transmitted his voice to the dumbstruck commander. Attack! My Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples will be able to help us break through the formation of these 3 sects. Chapter 1757. That's right. The disciple in charge suddenly came to his senses and clapped his hands in a flurry, sending a yellow talisman flying into the sky. Of course, this wasn't the time to attack yet. Many disciples were still taking pills and hadn't fully recovered their magic power yet. At this moment, the difference between these hastily assembled cultivators and Xianxia Zong, and the other 2 sects cultivators who had practiced countless times was obvious. The first round of attacks was very uneven and they were very flustered. However, even though it was a bit rushed, it was also something Xianxia Zong and the other disciples didn't expect. At this moment, the 7 skills sect's disciples were still busy dealing with Xiao Hua's 4th cloud. Xiao Hua was still in the air, so they really couldn't find any disciples to deal with this round of attacks. Rise, the disciples in charge of Xianxia Zong and the other 2 sects also didn't dare to be negligent. They calmed down a bit from the shock of the cloud-suppressing seal and quickly sent out a signal. On one hand, they ordered the 3 sects' disciples to block the incoming magic tools and yellow talismans. On the other hand, they also ordered some disciples to block Xiao Hua's cloud-suppressing seal. Haha, Xiao Hua was overjoyed and quickly sent a voice transmission. Senior Sister Sun, come with me. As he spoke, he rubbed his hands together and another cloud bigger than the one before appeared from the cloud-suppressing seal. This was Xiao Hua using more than half of his magic power. This is bad. Seeing such a big cloud descend even more fiercely than before, the 7 skill sects disciples' faces were already pale. After all, they didn't have enough magic power to activate magic tools. The yellow talismans they could use were like talismans in front of this magic tool. They felt like a delicate young lady facing a strong and burly man. They didn't feel safe at all and couldn't resist at all. However, the disciples in charge were even more difficult. Although the 7 skills sects formation was very ingenious, there was a limit. This time, the disciples who were swapped in were the same as the current disciples. They had just been attacked by the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples. Even if they were swapped in, they still wouldn't be able to resist. Thus, the disciple in charge unconsciously looked at the surrounding disciples who could use magic tools. It would have been better if they hadn't seen it. After seeing it, the disciple in charge became even more discouraged. Their faces were filled with hesitation, and they shrank back slightly. Although they didn't say anything, anyone could tell that they didn't want to face this mature, magical treasure. Looking at the disciple who was fighting against Xiao Hua, he saw that he had already landed on the ground and was sitting cross-legged after taking a pill. Looking at his expression, it seemed that he wouldn't be able to recover in a short period of time. What should we do? The disciple in command hesitated for a moment, but Xiao Hua didn't give him any time to hesitate. After the cloud-suppressing seal released the clouds, Xiao Hua rubbed his hands together. The entire cloud-suppressing seal shone with an extremely brilliant brilliance. Soon after, it let out an intense rumbling sound. It slowly followed behind the clouds and smashed down in the direction of the clouds. Let's go! Xiao Hua sent a sound transmission. His entire figure flew up, and quickly landed under the cloud-suppressing seal. At the same time, Sun Shu, Qian Diheng, and Kuan Fian also followed him into the brilliance of the cloud-suppressing seal. As soon as they entered, an indescribable throbbing and a feeling that they couldn't escape arose from the bottom of their hearts. The 3 of them trembled with fear, and at the same time, they couldn't help but want to take a look. A feeling of powerlessness arose in their hearts. It seemed that only today did they realize how terrifying this junior brother Xiao, who was originally a rogue cultivator, was. With a whoosh, the cloud-suppressing seal's clouds finally landed on the heads of the 7 skills sect disciples. At this time, the disciple in charge didn't make any sound. If they had listened to the disciple in charge, these 6 disciples would have had no choice but to use their bodies to resist. With a series of whoosh 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 sounds, the 6 disciples looked at each other with great tacit understanding, and each of them flew out. In the middle of the formation, there was a gap of several tens of feet. Naturally, the cloud fell through the gap. At this time, not only were the 6 people trembling with fear, but the disciples next to the gap were also trembling with fear. In their hearts, they were thinking if Xiao Hua pointed the clouds at them, would they also disregard the order to escape? Fortunately, Xiao Hua was so kind. How could he not take care of their feelings? Seeing that the gap had appeared, He quickly pointed his finger. Several clouds behind him scattered in all directions and shot towards the side of the gap. Under the defensive brilliance of the cloud-suppressing seal, he led Sun Shu and the others into the gap. The 7 skills sect disciples were flustered to deal with the incoming clouds. How could they still care about intercepting these 4 people? The most ingenious thing was that when Xiao Hua's figure landed in the gap, he didn't forget to turn around and smile at Qin Shiming, waving his hand. At that time, Qin Shiming's face flushed red. He couldn't describe the feeling in his heart. Was it jealousy, envy, or pride? However, he felt that his face had been slapped by Xiao Hua. But at this time, a disciple next to him shouted, "Good job! The Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples are indeed powerful. They actually risked their lives to do such a meritorious deed. Since they have already signaled us to attack, fellow brothers, why are we still hesitating?" "That's right." Qin Shiming immediately understood the meaning behind Xiao Hua's gesture, and quickly transmitted his voice to the cultivator in charge. The cultivator also understood and quickly sent out yellow talismans to attack. Although the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples hadn't recovered much of their magic power, this was the best time to attack. Once they broke through the blockade of the 3 sects' disciples, they would be able to see the treasure to advance to the Foundation establishment realm. Who would care about a slight injury to their meridians? Roar! The group of disciples seemed to have taken some kind of pill, and each of them unleashed their strongest attacks. Although the various colors of light were somewhat dim, they were still much stronger than the previous rounds of attacks. The Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples' attacks were clearly out of the expectations of the Xianghua Sect's disciples. However, he was also afraid. However, he had no choice but to ignore the fact that Xiao Hua had broken through the 7 skill sects formation and quickly sent out his unprepared yellow talismans. Xiao Hua's figure landed in the middle of the 7 skill sects disciples. He had long since prepared his flying sword. As long as he discovered any disciples who tried to stop him, he would kill them without exception. He was determined not to be held back by them and stay here. However, what Xiao Hua was afraid of was also what the 7 skill sects disciples were afraid of. Which one of them would dare to face Xiao Hua alone? Moreover, all of the 7 skill sects disciples were in a formation. Who would dare to slack off behind the formation? Great! Xiao Hua saw that there was no one behind him and was overjoyed. He waved his hand and the cloud-suppressing seal shrunk and fell into his hand. Just as he was about to call out to Sun Shu and the others to escape, a strange feeling came from his left hand. Chapter 1758. Just as Xiao Hua held the cloud-suppressing seal in his left hand, an intense feeling of exhaustion suddenly emerged from his Buddha Sarira. At the same time, an inexplicable throbbing appeared in the stomach of the Buddha Sarira, where the Naiwan Palace should be located. This is... Xiao Hua was flabbergasted. His left hand involuntarily twitched, and a sense of existence came from the palm of his left hand. Oh, so it's this thing. Xiao Hua suddenly came to a realization. When he saw the eye on Goldie's forehead, he vaguely felt that his left hand should also have one. The scar across his palm should be something similar to Goldie's eye. But for so many years, his left hand didn't seem to have any movement, and even his memory didn't awaken. Xiao Hua had almost forgotten about this thing. Who would have thought that when he arrived at the Netherworld, at the so-called Netherworld Eye, his left hand would actually have a faint movement? Just as this thought appeared in Xiao Hua's mind, from the scar on his left hand, a powerful suction force suddenly appeared. This suction force directly rushed towards Xiao Hua's Naiwan Palace. Unfortunately, his Naiwan Palace calmed down after jumping for a moment. The Buddhist consciousness of the Buddha Sarira, as well as the divine sense of the golden Buddha body, were all sucked away by that suction force. Moreover, the Buddhist consciousness was continuously being absorbed. Xiao Hua's Buddha Sarira began to flicker at an extremely fast speed, gradually dimming down. Ouch! Xiao Hua's head immediately felt a splitting pain. His figure swayed, and he was about to fall from the sky. Junior brother Xiao. Sun Shu had long been paying attention to Xiao Hua's every move, fearing that Xiao Hua would be injured in the battle with the 12 disciples. Seeing Xiao Hua's abnormality, he was naturally the first to discover it. His figure immediately flew over, and without caring about anything else, he grabbed Xiao Hua's waist. Junior brother Xiao. Chen Diheng shouted again. He quickly flew down, and used his hand to support Xiao Hua's arm. But Xiao Hua's face was pale, as if there was no blood in it. He was actually abnormally tired. Sun Shu retracted his hand without leaving a trace, and also supported Xiao Hua's arm. A pair of autumn water eyes deeply stared at Xiao Hua with deep concern. Xiao Hua circulated the exquisite leaf scripture with all his might to resist the indescribable pain on his head. A bitter expression appeared on his face as he said in a low voice, "I'm afraid I can't fly anymore. I'll have to trouble senior brother Qian to take me away. Hurry up, don't let the Xianxia sect's disciples see any clues." "I understand." Qian Dihang pulled Sun Hua's arm and was about to fly away. How could Sun Shu let him pull him away by himself? As she held onto his other arm she grumbled, "Junior martial brother, if you really can't do it, then don't." Sigh. Sun Shu wanted to complain, but he didn't know what to say. He could only look at Xiao Hua's deathly pale face. Together with Qian Diheng, he hurriedly flew in a random direction. Kuan Fian looked at Sun Shu's back with a strange gaze. He gritted his teeth and chased after him. Since Xiao Hua was injured, the search for the Zhongyao milk and even the treasures that could level up naturally had to be postponed. And without Xiao Hua's support, Qian Diheng and the other two really didn't have the confidence to find any treasures on their own. Sun Shu and Qian Diheng flew for a while with Xiao Hua. They saw that the wind pillars in front of them were getting thicker and thicker, and there were even slight space cracks blocking their way from time to time. They didn't dare to fly forward anymore. However, the terrain of Mingxi was special. There weren't any mountains that were too tall, only hills. It was difficult to even find a cave to rest in. Besides, Sun Shu and the other two understood that because the space of Mingxi was unstable, they also didn't know what was going on under the ground. They couldn't recklessly use earth escape talismans. Otherwise, they would easily be injured by the space cracks. This kind of injury could easily damage their bodies, but in serious cases, they couldn't even keep their lives. Sun Shu looked at Qian Diheng and said in a low voice, "Junior martial brother Qian, how about?" Qian Diheng knew what Sun Shu wanted to say. He hurriedly shook his head. "Senior martial sister Sun, don't go looking for that place now. The current situation is different from what we expected. There are many disciples of the three cultivation sects here. Moreover, their cultivation bases are not inferior to ours. If junior martial brother Xiao can't recover before they find out, not only will we not be able to get the Zhongyao milk, we might even lose our lives." Xiao Hua seemed to be extremely weak. He said in a low voice, "Let's fly to the other side of Mingxi first. Don't go inside. Let me recover first." But Qian Diheng was still somewhat hesitant. Mingxi really wasn't a place for qi refining cultivators. The reason why they dared to come here was naturally because they had made preparations beforehand. Moreover, they also knew that there was a safe path. Although Xiao Hua said to just fly to the other side and not go deep, in fact, it was still very dangerous. Let's listen to junior martial brother Zhao's instructions. Although there was a trace of hesitation on Sun Shu's face, she still nodded resolutely. "Fine," Qian Diheng sighed. His divine sense swept towards the place where they came from. However, this sweep shocked him. Divine sense could only be used within a range of about 1 zhang. Any further and he basically couldn't go out. Fortunately, after searching for about an hour, they found a semi-shallow cave in a low-lying area between 2 hills. At this moment, Xiao Hua's severe headache was slightly alleviated. He endured the headache and laid down a formation. The 4 of them hid inside and rested. Seeing Xiao Hua meditating with his 5 centers facing the sky and the muscles between his eyebrows twitching from time to time, Sun Shu, although sitting far away from him, also felt her heart clench. Only after several hours did Xiao Hua's complexion gradually return to normal. 3 days later, Xiao Hua finally stopped the rapid circulation of the exquisite leaf scripture. The dim splendor of the Buddha's Sarira returned to its previous appearance. Not only that, after the absorption of the suction force and Xiao Hua's sleepless cultivation for the past 3 days, the Sarira became even more vivid. The surface of the Sarira faintly had a swastika appearing. Instead, it had made even more progress. What was even more strange was that in the space between the Sarira's eyebrows, under the swastika symbol, there was a vertical crack, just like a third eye. Delusion breaker Dharma eye. Although Xiao Hua didn't open his eyes, His left hand slightly opened. The crack in his hand also slightly opened. A flickering silver eye stared at everything inside the cave for a long time. The eye in my hand is actually called the Delusion Breaker Dharma Eye. Xiaohua couldn't help but set off a shocking wave in his heart. After all, everything he saw when he opened the Delusion Breaker Dharma Eye made him extremely shocked. The cave inside the Delusion Breaker Dharma Eye was different from what he saw with the naked eye. He only saw cracks as thin as an ox's hair, as well as different kinds of fluorescent lights beside the cracks. As for the stones and the ground, they were all muddy. Combined with what he remembered in his mind, Xiaohua understood that these fluorescent lights should be the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and those thin cracks as thin as an ox's hair should be the so-called space cracks. This Delusion Breaker Dharma Eye is controlled by Buddha's consciousness. It should have been asleep before. If I hadn't come to this dark mystery, because of some unknown reason, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to wake it up. However, right now, the Sarira's level is still too low. It still can't control the Delusion Breaker Dharma Eye. Although Xiaohua knew that the Delusion Breaker Dharma Eye was a good thing, he still didn't know what it could be used for. Moreover, every time he opened it, his Sarira would feel tired, so he could only close it and slowly rest. Xiaohua opened his eyes and looked at the group of people who were resting and patrolling in the distance. Without waiting for him to speak, Sun Shu very sensitively opened her eyes and called out very happily, "Junior Martial Brother Xiao, your injuries have healed?" Xiaohua secretly felt ashamed, but the corners of his mouth held a smile as he said, "Senior Martial Sister, thank you for your concern. Little brother is already fine." "Alas, Junior Martial Brother Xiao, forget it, I won't say it. In the future, when you control magic weapons, don't be so stingy with your magic power. Although magic weapons are useful, they're far from what aura-refining cultivators like you and me can use as we wish." Seeing Qian Diheng's concern, Xiaohua took advantage of the situation and smiled apologetically. "Wasn't little brother forced to do this? If I didn't do this, how could we come in? That's right. How are Senior Martial Brother Can and the others? Who cares about them?" Qian Diheng curled his lips, very disdainful. He waved his hand and said, "When I think of Can Peng's appearance, I just feel unhappy. What right does he have to be there to criticize us? If he had 80% of Junior Martial Brother Zhao's divine power, I would listen to his nagging." "Don't," Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand. "Maybe we should consider the big picture. We're really a bit willful." Kuan Fian smiled and said, "No matter, from what I see, the few of us were able to rush in from the Xianghua sect's formation. First, it showed the prestige of our Imperial Thunder sect, and second, the other disciples could also take advantage of the situation to attack. If they still can't take advantage of such a good opportunity, then they're a bunch of pigs." Qian Diheng continued. Qian Diheng was talking more and more nonsense, almost feeling like he was the junior martial brother. Xiaohua touched his nose and said, "We've already rested for a few days, let's go to that place. Little brother can't help but want to see what Zhongyao looks like." "Hee, Junior Martial Brother Xiao, since we're here, we don't need to hide anymore." Qian Diheng glanced at Sun Shu and smiled. This kind of thing should have been explained to Junior Martial Brother long ago. After all, it's all Junior Martial Brother Zhao's credit that we're able to come here. Xiaohua asked curiously, "Senior Martial Brother Qian, why are you saying such useless things? Could it be that there's some twists and turns in the process?" "Sigh, there's no twists and turns." Sun Shu smiled bitterly and said, "After all, when I was discussing with Senior Martial Sister Kuan and Junior Martial Brother Qian, we already agreed that we wouldn't tell Junior Martial Brother Xiao until the last moment. Of course, this isn't purposely hiding something, it's because this place is too important, only close descendants of the Imperial Thunder sect can know about it. If they can't enter the netherworld, the news will be leaked. Oh, I'm not afraid that Junior Martial Brother Xiao will leak the news." Sun Shu thought of something again and hurriedly explained. "Hee, don't worry. Xiaohua himself had a lot of secrets. Why would he care about other people's precautions? Moreover, Xiaohua wasn't blind, and he wasn't an ignorant youth. How could he not know about Sun Shu's performance along the way? How could he not understand Sun Shu's intentions? If Kuan Fian or Qian Diheng would purposely hide something from him, Sun Shu definitely wouldn't. Chapter 1759. Since we've already come all the way here, let's not talk about unnecessary things. Xiao Hua said with a smile, we're brothers from the same sect, some natural barriers can't stop us from having a common goal. Haha, good. Qian Diheng clapped and laughed. Sister Sun, are you ready? Can you use that magic weapon? Of course. Sun Shu smiled and said, Brother Xiao has been recuperating these days, and I haven't been idle either. I've already adjusted my power to the best level. Kuan Fian's eyes also flashed with a trace of surprise. He smiled and said, Since that's the case, why don't you hurry up and cast the spell? I'll listen to Sister Kuan. Sun Shu clapped her hands, and a palm-sized conch-like magic weapon was taken out by her. This magic weapon was different from the cloud-suppressing seal. It didn't seem to have any frightening power, nor did it have any dazzling light. This is a magic weapon of Ai's ancestor. It's called Searching Conch. It can record the places you've been to before using a special method, so you can easily find this place in the future. Xiao Hua scratched his head, smiled and said, This thing is suitable for me. I've never had a sense of direction. I can easily get lost. Haha, Brother Xiao, don't underestimate this Searching Conch. Qian Diheng knew that Xiao Hua didn't understand. He smiled and said, This place contains some formations, some secret places, and even some space cracks. What? Could it be done through an array? Through space cracks? Xiao Hua seemed to wake up from a dream. He looked at the Searching Conch and said in shock, Could it be that the place where Zhongyao is inside a space crack? Good. Qian Diheng's face was full of excitement. He clapped again and said, Haha, Brother Xiao, I just wanted to see your shocked face. I've been looking forward to it all the way. Today I finally see it. You didn't expect it at all, right? That thing is not only inside the dark mystery, but also inside the space crack. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly, shook his head and said, I didn't expect it. Even if Brother Qian said it's a space crack, I don't know where it is. There are thousands of space cracks inside the dark mystery. How can I find it? So, it all depends on luck. Sun Shu pursed his lips and smiled. He looked at the foraging conch in his hand and said, Moreover, this foraging conch doesn't only have the functions that junior brother Qian mentioned. According to the control method, I can also find a place that meets Ai's wishes within a certain range. Of course, this range and the chance of success is related to Ai's cultivation. Oh, it is indeed a great magical treasure. Xiao Hua nodded. In his heart, he understood that this function that Sun Shu was talking about should be the true value of the searching snail. Senior Sun, please cast your spell. Kuan Fei Yen squinted his eyes and urged. Sun Shu sat down cross-legged and tossed the foraging conch into the air. He closed his eyes tightly and used his left and right hands as if he was holding an orchid. A seemingly elegant and mysterious spell was slowly cast. When all kinds of spells hit the foraging conch gradually emitted a red brilliance. After the red brilliance, it emitted a light green brilliance. Xiao Hua carefully counted. When an extremely bright brilliance appeared, the foraging conch actually changed into 9 different colors in a row. When the bright light appeared, it transformed into the shape of a searching snail in front of Sun Shu's eyes. It was just that this searching snail's phantom followed the spiral of the searching snail and slightly rotated, making it look like a stream of light was flowing everywhere. When Sun Shu saw the phantom appear, she let out a long sigh of relief. Her hanging heart finally settled down. Soon after, Sun Shu's left and right hands formed different spells again. This time, it was abnormally fast. It was as if a phantom was flashing in front of her eyes. In the end, there seemed to be 4 jade-like soft hands dancing in the air. Quick! Sun Shu shouted and the 4 palms suddenly disappeared. Only the thumbs of the 2 hands remained on her forehead. Those 2 hands transformed into a pair of wings. With a pu sound, Sun Shu's red lips opened and a mouthful of essence blood was sprayed on the searching snail's phantom. That phantom was still slowly rotating. The blood mist was evenly spread on the searching snail's spiral. Moreover, the strange thing was that after the blood mist covered the phantom, it still grew out of the phantom and gradually formed 2 small wings on both sides of the phantom. Sigh! Sun Shu let out a long sigh. Her face was abnormally pale. She forced a smile and said, Junior brother Xiao, fortunately I didn't disappoint you. I finally activated the searching snail. Think about it. Compared to junior brother Zhao's cloud-suppressing seal, it's really too different. Senior Sister Sun, you've worked hard. Xiao Hua said with concern, it's better to quickly take the pill. Sun Shu's beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of warmth. She smiled and said, it's not a problem. Although she said that, she still took out a scarlet pill from her storage bag and swallowed it. In front of Xiao Hua, she sat down cross-legged and recovered her magic power. After a while, Sun Shu's face flushed red. Her eyes were still closed and she touched the searching snail. The searching snail didn't move, but the phantom moved first. The blood-red wings on the two sides of the phantom flapped slightly, and the phantom flew up into the air, flying out of the cave. Junior brother Xiao, quickly remove the formation. Sun Shu suddenly thought of something and hurriedly shouted, yes. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. As he spoke, he formed a seal and collected the dozens of talismans around the cave. Then, Sun Shu and the others flew out. They saw the searching snail phantom fly out of the cave. First, it stopped in front of the cave for a moment. Like a rolling wave, it turned wave after wave. After the time it took to burn a stick of incense, it slowly flew in a certain direction. Good. Seeing this scene, the four of them understood that the searching snail had found Zhong Yao Lu's location. This trip wouldn't be a waste. Senior brother Qian, senior sister Kuan, we have prepared the magic tools. There are many 12th layer qi refining cultivators here. Maybe their masters will come too. We will protect the searching snail and senior sister Sun. Let senior sister Sun focus on controlling the searching snail. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept and immediately knew that his divine sense was restricted. We will listen to junior brother Zhao's orders. Qian Dihang and Kuan Fian each took out Ming Hao halberd and thunder-trapping bead and flew to the left and right of Sun Shu. Xiao Hua held the cloud-suppressing seal in his hand and flew slightly behind the three of them. The searching snail flew fast and slow. Its flight path was also winding, as if it was going in circles. It also seemed to be looking for something that was constantly changing its position. At first, the searching snail was still at the periphery of the netherworld. But after half an incense's time, the wind pillar gradually became thicker. Xiao Hua knew that it was going to enter the depths of the netherworld. Right at this moment, a swift and fierce sound of wind abruptly rang out 3 meters above Xiao Hua's head. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for it. Chapter 1760. While Xiao Hua was flying cautiously, he suddenly heard a loud ripping sound above his head. The wind was biting cold, and before he could raise his head, Xiao Hua's divine sense swept out and saw that above his head, a 1 zhong long and 1 qi wide spatial crack had appeared out of thin air. Ah! Xiao Hua was astounded because the smell of blood and desolation emanated from the spatial rift. It was even to the extent that an extremely icy cold blade of wind had swept out from within it. Although this wind blade was not enough to threaten Xiao Hua, but to ordinary people, it was a killing weapon. What was even more strange was that when Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over this spatial crack, a majestic spatial power came from all around, suppressing this spatial crack. Moreover, the spatial crack also had a kind of self-healing power, sealing this spatial crack bit by bit at a speed visible to the naked eye, and in a moment, it disappeared. The appearance and disappearance of the spatial crack naturally attracted the attention of Qian Diheng and Kuan Fian. The two of them followed Sun Shu while looking back at Xiao Hua from time to time. When Xiao Hua flew closer with a strange expression, Kuan Fian said in a low voice, "Junior brother Xiao, this temporary spatial crack is not the greatest danger of dark mystery." Qian Diheng was also unusually solemn and said, "It's also because junior brother Zhao's luck is good. If that spatial crack that suddenly appeared was 1 qi lower, junior brother Zhao's body, I'm afraid it would not be safe." Xiao Hua himself also felt a little scared, looking at Kuan Fian and asked, "Such a powerful spatial crack is still not the most powerful? Then the most powerful thing is the wind pillar?" Kuan Fian shook his head and said, "Of course the wind pillar is powerful. If not a function cultivator, who would dare to go near it? However, this wind pillar is visible to the naked eye. Those spatial cracks that cannot be seen by the naked eye and divine sense are the most terrifying." There are spatial cracks that cannot be seen by divine sense? Xiao Hua was shocked. This was something he did not see in the ancient records. Senior sister Kuan is right. Qian Diheng replied. The space in Mingxi is not stable. There are fixed cracks that can be seen by the naked eye and fixed cracks that can be seen by divine sense. In addition to the temporary cracks that Junior Marshall Brother saw just now, there are many other cracks. Among them, the ones that can't be seen by divine sense are the most terrifying. It's like a trap. Once you jump into it, your body will be torn apart unknowingly. You won't have time to do anything to fix it. You'll only end up with your soul dissipating. When Xiaohua heard this, his face turned somewhat pale. That's right, such a powerful spatial crack is simply an incomparably powerful magic treasure. It's simply even more powerful than the lizard's invisibility. Seeing the change in Xiaohua's expression, Qian Diheng couldn't help but laugh. He turned around and put his hand on Xiaohua's shoulder, laughing. Junior brother Xiao, you don't have to be afraid. Although this invisible space crack is powerful, it is in the depths of the netherworld. We definitely won't be able to see it on our way. Don't worry. Oh, so it's like that. Xiaohua let out a sigh of relief, but he still wasn't too reassured. He asked, since the space outside Mingxi is relatively stable, then, shouldn't the temporary cracks that appeared just now also not appear? Hearing Xiaohua's words, Qian Diheng suddenly woke up. The expression on his face immediately changed. At the same time, a trace of fear flashed across his eyes as he looked at Kuan Fian. Of course, Kuan Fian's reaction was the same as Qian Diheng's. He said in horror, Junior Marshall Brother Xiao is right. This temporary spatial crack should be in the depths of Mingxi. Here it definitely won't appear. Could it be that what Zhong Haoren and the others said? There really is a change in Mingxi? Junior Marshall Brother Xiao, should we continue? Qian Diheng took his hand off Xiaohua's shoulder and asked hesitantly. Xiaohua looked at Sun Shu, who was trying his best to control the snail and didn't have time to pay attention to this side. He thought for a while and said, in my opinion, let's not continue. Anyway, Zhongyao Lu is there. If we don't look for him, others won't know. Let's wait for the next time. However, as soon as his voice fell, Qian Diheng and Kuan Fian said in unison, no. Qian Diheng and Kuan Fian felt that they were a little rash and disrespectful to Xiaohua. They hurriedly explained, Junior Marshall Brother Xiao. No, sigh Junior Marshall Brother, I won't say anything unnecessary. Could it be that you have lost your confidence after one failure and are not in a hurry to build your foundation? We came out with a bang. Could it be that we have to go back with a face covered in dirt? Even if Master doesn't say anything, the senior martial sister of Earth Thunder Palace doesn't say anything. What about the others? What would the other disciples of Thunder Palace say? Kuan Fian also said. Sigh. Xiaohua naturally knew what they were thinking. He smiled and said, don't the disciples of Xianghua sect have treasures? Let's go there. Kuan Fian shook his head slightly. Not to mention that there are too many monks and too little gruel. Even if we go, I'm afraid that only Junior Marshall Brother Xiao has the confidence to get that thing. What hope do we have? And since there are changes in the netherworld, I'm afraid there are also changes there. It's also not safe. After thinking about it, Zhongyao Lao is still the most reliable. Junior Marshall Brother Xiao, if you don't want to go forward, you can go find Kan Shi Ming and the others. We definitely won't complain about anything. Qian Diheng gritted his teeth and finally said, ha ha ha. Xiaohua laughed loudly. Just like Qian Diheng, he flew in front of him and stretched out his hand to wrap around his neck. He laughed and said, you bastard, I'm just worried about your safety. I didn't say that I don't want to go. Why are you pushing me there? Ha ha ha. Qian Diheng also laughed. He turned his hand to wrap around Xiaohua's neck and said, like I said, Junior Marshall Brother Xiao is the most straightforward. In the Thunder Palace, you are the only person I like. How can you not go with me? If you don't go, I'll go blind first. Hee hee. Kuan Fian's face also showed a happy expression, but a trace of gloominess flashed in his eyes. After flying forward in a zigzag manner for the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, the space crack that suddenly appeared again. But this time, it was in the air a little further away from the four of them. Although it didn't hurt the four of them, Xiaohua's heart suddenly tightened. He thought for a moment and released his Buddhist sense. However, Buddhist sense and divine sense were the same. Although it was more than 10 times farther, compared to the naked eye, it still couldn't reach far. However, when he released his Buddhist sense this time, Xiaohua faintly felt that his Buddhist sense was a little different from before. It seemed that the degree of observation was a little higher. He could faintly feel the existence of those cracks in space. Great! Xiaohua immediately thought of the third eye between the eyebrows of the Buddha relics. Wasn't that the mark of the awakening of the Dharma eye? Thinking of this, Xiaohua withdrew his Buddhist sense. His left hand opened slightly, and the Dharma eye on his hand opened a small slit. Immediately, the third eye on the Buddha relics also opened. Although Xiaohua didn't close his eyes, the third eye on his Buddha relics was actually the same as the Dharma eye. He could see the countless amounts of heaven and earth spiritual qi flashing faintly between heaven and earth, as well as thin, almost invisible space cracks. Wonderful! Xiaohua raised his hand and saw a space crack slowly forming in midair. It then expanded, and a wind blade with countless amounts of pale yellow heaven and earth spiritual qi quickly streaked across that crack. Boom! A huge wind sound rang out, and in midair, another space crack appeared. Looking in front of the four of them, he could see everything within 100 feet. Looking further, Xiaohua felt an irrepressible exhaustion. Xiaohua understood that now he could only see about 100 feet. If his cultivation increased in the future, he should be able to see even further. And now, 100 feet was enough. Ouch! Xiaohua raised his left hand to look. Suddenly, he saw the phantom of the Seeking Conch flying across a 1-foot-long, 2-inch-wide space crack. Sun Shu didn't know that her towering chest was rushing towards the outline of that crack. Is this the invisible space crack? Xiaohua was shocked. He didn't have time to say anything to stop her. His figure quickly flew over, grabbed Sun Shu's waist, and suddenly flew up several feet, dodging that crack. Junior Martial Brother, what are you doing? Sun Shu was concentrating on casting her technique. She didn't think that Xiaohua would grab her waist. When she came to her senses, how could she stop Xiaohua? She could only wait for Xiaohua to stop. Then she blushed and reproached him. Seeing the doubt in Sun Shu's eyes, Xiaohua didn't have time to explain. He turned his head and shouted, "Senior Martial Brother Qian, Senior Martial Sister Kuan, fly past me." What? Seeing Xiaohua's sudden movement, Qian Diheng and Kuan Fian also found it strange. Qian Diheng's eyes even showed a playful look, but after hearing Xiaohua's warning, the two of them suddenly woke up and hurriedly stopped their speed. They slowly circled around Xiaohua and flew over. Sun Shu slipped out of Xiaohua's hands without leaving a trace. She looked behind Xiaohua with a complicated gaze and said in a low voice, "Junior Martial Brother Xiao, you mean? Senior Martial Sister Sun naturally knows that my premonition is very strong, right?" Xiaohua stretched out his right hand and pinched his chin. He also looked at the space behind him and said very calmly, "And indeed." Sun Shu nodded. "I already knew on the way back from the Feather Immortal gathering." Good. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "I feel that there is something very dangerous in this area, but I don't know what it is. I was afraid that Senior Martial Sister would be injured, so I rashly brought Senior Martial Sister here. I hope Senior Martial Sister." Sun Shu bit her lips. She couldn't tell if she was disappointed or lucky. She didn't say a word. Junior Martial Brother Xiao, then, what kind of danger could it be? Kuan Fei Yan asked hesitantly. "I really don't know." Xiaohua revealed a bitter smile and shook his head. "I only have a feeling. But because of this feeling, I can't let Senior Martial Sister Sun take the risk." Sun Shu felt sweet in her heart. She also smiled sweetly and said, "Could it be the most powerful invisible spatial crack in dark mystery?" Chapter 1761. Isn't that simple? Qian Diheng said with a smile, "You just need to find something to test it out. If there isn't, then forget it, but if there really is. Damn it, Junior Brother Xiao, you are our lucky talisman." Lucky talisman? Xiaohua was stunned and asked curiously, "There is such a talisman?" Haha. Sun Shu was also in a good mood. She pursed her lips and said, "Don't listen to Junior Brother Qian teasing you. Where is there a lucky talisman?" Ha ha ha. Xiaohua comes to his senses and punches Qian Diheng's shoulder. But Kuan Fian at the side had a smile that was not a smile. When Qian Diheng pretended to beg for mercy, he said with a smile, Junior Sister Sun, you are wrong. There really are lucky talismans in this world. What? Sun Shu was stunned and asked curiously, lucky talisman? Isn't it a kind of jade pendant? Could it be that there is really a talisman that as long as you wear it, you will be blessed with a lifetime of peace and safety? Does Junior Sister Sun know about the 5 auspicious beasts? Kuan Fian asked with a smile that was not a smile. This. Sun Shu obviously did not know. She blushed a little and said in a low voice, I only know about the 4 mythological beasts. Haha, Senior Sister Sun has nothing to feel inferior about. Although I am in Heavenly Thunder Palace, I also only know that Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird and Black Tortoise are the 4 mythological beasts. Qian Diheng said disapprovingly, as for the 5 auspicious beasts, I also don't know. Azure Dragon? Xiao Hua's heart moved. He naturally thought of Little White. He rolled his eyes and said with a smile, Senior brothers, what are you talking about? I am a disciple of Heavenly Thunder Palace. I don't know about these mythological beasts and auspicious beasts. It seems that Heavenly Thunder Palace's library also doesn't have records of this? Hee, these are all passed down from ancient times. Who knows if it is true or false? The library naturally doesn't have it. Not to mention Heavenly Thunder Palace. Even Heavenly Thunder Palace is the same. Qian Diheng said with a smile. That's right. Legend has it that in ancient times, there were 4 continents in the world, each occupying the 4 corners of the world. Each continent had a divine beast that guarded it. According to the positions of the 4 continents in the east, west, north, and south, they became the 4 spirits, which are the 4 divine beasts. They are the Azure Dragon, the White Tiger, the Vermilion Bird, and the Black Tortoise. Sun Shu explained with a smile. However, whether or not these 4 are really divine beasts, or a collective name for a group of spirit beasts, no one knows for sure. Then, he looked at Kuan Fian and said, as for the 5 auspicious beasts that Senior Kuan mentioned, I have never heard of them. Kuan Fei Yen laughed coldly. Just because it's unheard of doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Didn't the 4 great mythological beasts also become legends? Why do so many people believe it? That's because there are still some clues that can be found. Qian Diheng argued, isn't Tai Ching Sek's flood dragon spirit beast an example? Humph, what kind of dragon is that? Kuan Fian laughed coldly. Dragons are inherently lustful, the dragon species is already not pure. The so-called 9 sons of the dragon are all different. Who knows how many dragon veins Tai Ching Sek's flood dragon has? That Azure Dragon has pure dragon veins. Other than the 5-clawed golden dragon which is a descendant of the Heaven Realm's heavenly dragon, the others are all mixed. Speaking till here, Kuan Fian's face turned slightly red and did not say any more. See. Hearing about the dragon veins, Xiao Hua's heart shivered again. Just as he was about to ask, he heard Qian Diheng cut in. Senior Kuan, don't show off, let's talk about the 5 auspicious beasts and the auspicious talisman first. Kuan Fian nodded in satisfaction and said, the 5 auspicious beasts are Pai Xiao, Qilin, Peacock, Golden Toad, and Longevity Turtle. Xiao Hua and the other 2 were all shocked and asked curiously, where did the reason come from? Pai Xiao is a ferocious auspicious beast. The male is called Pai, the female is called Xiao. Pai Xiao is ferocious and mighty. It is in charge of patrolling the celestial realm, stopping demons, ghosts, plagues, and diseases from causing disturbances. Thus it is called an auspicious beast. The male Qilin is called Qilin, the female Qilin. Their appearances are strange. They have a dragon head, antlers, horse hooves, oxtail, wolf forehead, and their bodies are covered with colorful scales. According to legends, wherever a Qilin steps, it will bring good luck to the people there. Thus it is called Qilin auspicious. It is a symbol of auspiciousness. At the same time, Qilins are ferocious like Pai Xiao. They can eliminate disasters and expel evil spirits. Thus it is also called an auspicious beast. Peacock is a descendant of the phoenix. Its body is green, it has a chicken head, swallow's jaw, snake's neck, fish's tail, and its voice is loud and clear. Peacock is the same as the phoenix. It will not land in a place without treasures. Thus it is called an auspicious beast. Golden Toad is a symbol of wealth. It only has 3 legs. The place it is at will always have extremely rare treasures. Thus it is called an auspicious beast. Longevity Turtle is a descendant of the Black Tortoise. It is famous for its long lifespan. Thus it is called an auspicious beast. Kuan Fian said a lot with joy. Xiao Hua's eyes were full of splendor. Especially when he talked about peacock, Xiao Hua immediately thought of the phoenix illusion in the space. That phoenix illusion was originally green. Only when it was activated with mana, it would show 5 colors. It was very similar to the peacock that Kuan Fian talked about. Fine. After Kuan Fian finished, Qian Diheng rolled his eyes and said, "What peacock? What longevity turtle? They are all descendants of the phoenix and black tortoise. That golden toad is a 3-legged toad. How can it be called an auspicious beast? But Pai Xiao and Qilin, they are abnormally ferocious. They can become spirit beasts." Kuan Fian did not care about Qian Diheng's rebuke. He smiled and said, "If it is, then it is. If it is not, then it is not. I will not say things without reason. Also, from what I know, the talismans made from the fur and blood of these 5 auspicious beasts, when worn on the body of a cultivator, can reverse the cultivator's fate, turning misfortune into luck, disaster into auspiciousness." So it's like that. Xiao Hua suddenly understood. Spirit talismans were originally refined from the fur and flesh of spirit beasts. Although the 5 great auspicious beasts were powerful, they were still spirit beasts. Whoever could really use their fur and beast blood to refine spirit talismans might really be able to accompany Jixiang forever. Xiao Hua's eyes turned. He smiled and said, "Could it be that only talismans can be made? Didn't they say that jade talismans are more profound, so there is no auspicious jade talisman?" Hee, junior brother Xiao is smart. I was just about to say. Kuan Fian smiled and said, "The true auspicious talisman can only be made from the fur of these 5 auspicious beasts, although jade talismans are more powerful than spirit talismans, but in terms of auspicious protection, it is still inferior by a lot, falling into the inferior category." There is really a jade talisman that is similar to the 5 auspicious beasts? Xiao Hua's heart could not help but jump wildly. Yes. Kuan Fian smiled and said, "I know that there is a jade talisman in the shape of a qilin. Normally it looks very normal, but it can bring good luck to people, of course. As a jade talisman, using a special method, it can be used as a magic tool or treasure." Special method? Xiao Hua said anxiously. What special method? I do not know about this. Kuan Fian shook his head, after which he asked curiously, "Could it be that junior brother Xiao also has this kind of rare auspicious jade talisman? Come to vote for me." Chapter 1762. Hee, I'm just a loose cultivator. How could I have such an opportunity? Xiao Hua bitterly smiled. It's just that in the past, I saw a jade artifact that looked like a peacock that senior sister Kuan mentioned. At that time, they said it was a good item, worth a few middle-grade spirit stones. Although I liked it, I didn't have that many spirit stones, so I could only leave. Now that senior sister Kuan mentioned it, I remembered and felt a little regretful. I want to know what that special technique is. If I knew, I would exchange it for that jade artifact even if I had to sell it. Puchi! Kuan Fian laughed out loud. If it's really like what junior brother Xiao said, then junior brother Xiao doesn't need to feel regretful. This kind of auspicious talisman can't be exchanged with spirit stones. Moreover, that special technique should be inside the jade talisman. If junior brother Xiao doesn't take the jade talisman back, how can you get it? This thing can't be confirmed in person. Although Kuan Fian said so, Xiao Hua was still half believing and half doubtful. It's just that he was in Mingxi, so he didn't have time to take out the phoenix illusion that Xiao Xianrui gave him. Thinking of Mingxi, Xiao Hua couldn't help but laugh. They were just talking about the invisible space crack, and suddenly they talked about the auspicious talisman, the 5 auspicious beasts, and the jade talisman. He smiled and pointed forward. Senior sister Kuan, senior brother Qian, didn't you say you wanted to see if there was any danger here? Did we go off topic? Hee, I saw that senior sister Sun was too tired, so we talked a little more and let her rest a little more. Qian Diheng smiled and took out a spirit stone. I'll try it now. Sun Shu looked at Qian Diheng throwing out the spirit stone and smiled. Thank you junior brother Qian for your concern. Xiao Hua also suddenly understood. He looked up and saw that the seeking conch was still in Sun Shu's hand, and that phantom also stopped above Sun Shu's head. Sun Shu's face was flushed red. Obviously she was in good spirits. Qian Diheng drove the spirit stone to a 1 zhang radius behind Xiao Hua. There wasn't any danger, so he smiled and said, Junior brother Xiao, I'm afraid you're thinking too much. It's good to be a little more careful. Sun Shu quickly said. If we encounter it, it won't be good. Hee, it's best if you don't. After all, the invisible space crack was extremely narrow and not very long. How could a spirit stone coincidentally touch it? Xiaohua didn't point it out and said while rubbing his nose. Haha, Xiao de Xiang talisman can't be made anymore. Qian Dihang waved his hand, and the spirit stone flew back into his hand. But at this moment, a light paw sound rang out, and the entire spirit stone strangely split into two. Ah! Qian Dihang laughed so hard that he couldn't close his mouth. With his eyes wide open, he stared at the two neatly separated spirit stones in a daze. Spatial crack. Sun Shu's expression suddenly changed. Wasn't the location of the spirit stone where she had just flown past? Isn't that the position where Xiaohua grabbed her waist and leaped? Immediately, cold sweat appeared on Sun Shu's forehead. There really are invisible spatial rifts. Xiaohua was also greatly alarmed. He blinked his eyes and stared at that place for a moment. Then, he similarly patted his hand and took out an empty jade bottle. He then threw it next to the spirit stone. With a pang sound, the jade bottle was also cut open by the invisible spatial rift, like a sharp blade. Damn it! This is really inconceivable. Qian Dihang waved his hand and kept the spirit stone. He looked at Xiaohua with a face of reverence. Junior brother Xiao, you lead the way in front. This brother will definitely follow you and not deviate a single step. Kuan Fian's expression was also complicated. His body shrank back a bit. But Sun Shu looked at the searching conch and said with difficulty, I can't fly behind junior brother Xiao. Haha, Xiaohua laughed. Then this little brother will accompany senior sister soon and be senior sister's auspicious talisman. Okay, Sun Shu's face was a bit hot, but her heart was sweet. She changed her hand sign and the searching conch's image flew up again. Her body also flew up. Looking at her expression, it was clear that she trusted Xiaohua and was not afraid of any danger ahead. After flying for another incense's time, Xiaohua unconsciously started to sweat. This was not because he was tired, but there were actually many invisible spatial rifts. Once or twice, Xiaohua could shamelessly say that it was just a feeling. But 3 or 4 times, no matter what, it could not be a problem of feeling. Seeing that there were actually 4 spatial rifts blocking the way ahead, Xiaohua's heart was anxious. He could not possibly ask for another detour, right? But at this moment, the searching conch's image suddenly stopped. It flapped its wings and fell from the sky, landing right on top of the searching conch. It disappeared without a trace. Ayo, senior sister Sun. Xiaohua was shocked and turned to look at Sun Shu. Luckily, Sun Shu was not injured as he imagined. Her face was pale and her eyes were filled with surprise. Clearly, the searching conch stopping was also out of her expectations. What's going on? Kuan Fian and Qian Diheng could not help but fly up and look at her strangely. This. Sun Shu frowned and thought for a moment before shaking her head. I do not know. After all, I have only used the searching conch a few times. Then, Sun Shu frowned and thought for a moment before saying, according to I's understanding, the searching conch losing its effect is because the spatial rift Zhongyao milk is in has already been destroyed. Everything in the spatial rift, including the Zhongyao milk, has been destroyed. No way. Qian Diheng said with a sad face, we worked so hard to reach the last step and it actually became like drawing water with a bamboo basket. This is really unacceptable to I. Kuan Fian and Xiaohua's faces were also filled with disappointment. Of course what I said just now may not be true. Sun Shu hurriedly said, maybe some magic tools or treasures are also looking for the Zhongyao milk, or maybe they are inside the spatial rift, which can also affect the searching conch's effect. Hearing this, everyone's hearts were half happy and half worried. If someone was also looking for the Zhongyao milk, there was a 90% chance that it was a disciple of the 3 sections. Moreover, a disciple of the 12th level of Qi refining had set up a defense at the entrance of the netherworld, so it must be a disciple of the foundation establishment stage who went inside. This was not something that Xiaohua and the others could deal with. But if there was a magic tool in the spatial rift that affected the searching conch, then this magic tool was worth looking forward to. How could they not be happy? The four of them looked at each other. Then Sun Shu and the others looked at Xiao Hua's face. Xiao Hua thought for a moment before saying, "If we don't go and see with our own eyes, I think we won't be willing." Moreover, according to Ai's thinking, if there is really a senior of the Foundation establishment stage, why would the three sects work so hard to set up a defense at the entrance of the Netherworld? Even if there is a senior of the Foundation establishment stage, don't we still have other martial brothers? Let's go outside and take a look. If there is no chance, then we'll talk about it in the future, or find other opportunities. Sun Shu nodded. I also feel that the possibility of a senior of the Foundation establishment stage is not big. After all, what they want is a treasure of the Foundation establishment stage, and the difference between it and the Zhongyao milk is too big. We should still go, but how should we go? Kuan Fian said in a low voice. Naturally, we should continue to walk forward. Qian Diheng pointed at the location of the invisible spatial rifts. That's not right. Xiao Hua hurriedly stopped him and said with a smile, "Since the searching conch fell here, it's not auspicious to continue to walk forward. In my opinion, let's walk from the side and see if there is anything strange." This. Xiao Hua's explanation was very far-fetched. Qian Diheng was a little unhappy, but after looking at Kuan Fian and Qian Diheng, he could only say embarrassedly, "Let's listen to junior brother Zhao's instructions." "Let's go." Xiao Hua was also not polite. With a wave of his hand, he led everyone to go around the invisible spatial rifts. Sun Shu did not take back the searching conch. She pointed her finger, and the searching conch spun quickly. The blood-like spiral spun round and round, floating above her head. After walking for about half a cup of tea's time, Xiao Hua felt that they had more or less gone around the spatial rifts. Then, he changed his direction again. Just as he was about to fly in the direction of the searching conch, Kuan Fian suddenly said in a low voice, "Junior brother Xiao, look! What is that?" Following the direction that Kuan Fian was pointing at, everyone lowered their heads to look. On the ground about 30 feet in front of them, there was a layer of yellow-black vegetation. And on top of that vegetation, there was an irregular black object the size of a palm. This object was not big, and mixed in with the yellow and black color, it was not particularly conspicuous. If Kuan Fian did not point it out, Xiao Hua and the others would definitely not be able to see it. At this time, everyone was suspicious of the searching conch's failure, so they were very sensitive to these things. Qian Diheng's eyes immediately showed a trace of eagerness, and he shouted, "Could it be a treasure?" But when everyone flew closer, with their spiritual sense, although there were fluctuations of spiritual energy on that object, it was very weak. It was not something that could be emitted by any magic tool or treasure. Xiao Hua looked around very cautiously, but in his spiritual sense, he did not see anything special about this object. He also did not see any arrays in the surroundings. Thus, with a wave of his hand, that object fell into Xiao Hua's hand. When the object entered his hand, it was slightly heavy, and where his fingers touched, there was a kind of rough feeling. Looking at the edges were very smooth, as if it had been cut off by a sharp blade. There were traces of veins on the cut section, and he could not see what material it was made of. On the black surface, where the spiritual energy fluctuations were emitted, there were a few strange-looking runes. These runes were also cut off, and it was impossible to see what it was made of. Xiao Hua looked at this object and felt that it was somewhat familiar, but he could not think of anything in that moment. He passed it over to Sun Shu and the others, and when Qian Diheng also finished looking at it, he passed it over to Xiao Hua. "Senior sister, can you see what this is?" Xiao Hua's gaze landed on Kuan Fian's face. Just now, regarding the information regarding the auspicious spirit talisman, Xiao Hua truly understood that the heritage of the descendants of the Imperial Thunder Sect's various great thunder palaces was far from what he could compare with by reading some ancient records. "I only feel that this object is not a magic tool, and even more so not a fragment of a treasure. I can't see anything else." Kuan Fian's eyes were also filled with confusion. "Hee, junior brother Xiao, let us go look for it again, maybe there will be more." Qian Diheng raised his eyes and looked into the distance. Chapter 1763. As far as the eye could see, there was also a large area of low vegetation, but there was no fragment in Xiao Hua's hand. "Let's go." Xiao Hua waved his hand and led everyone to fly towards the depths of Mingxi. Mingxi really had a huge change. At this time, they had just left the periphery of Mingxi and the wind pillar was much thicker. The hurricane that was constantly blowing made the surrounding area dizzy. The so-called east, west, north and south could not be distinguished at all. Fortunately, everyone was at the peak of qi refinement. They took out their respective magic tools and all kinds of brilliance protected themselves. They were not afraid of this hurricane. Look, look. Qian Diheng had been looking down and suddenly, like a child who saw a new toy, he pointed and shouted. Sure enough, on the ground about 4 zhang in front, there was a protrusion on the ground. On the side, there were 2 pieces of the same black fragment. Xiao Hua held the fragment in his hand and compared it with the fragment just now. It was obviously the same thing. However, the texture between the 3 did not match. They were not connected together. Strange. Xiao Hua also gave these 3 items to Qian Diheng while he himself stood in the air. His eyes were fixed on the 1-foot-long invisible space crack about 1 zhang in front of him. He seemed to be lost in thought. After a while, Kuan Fian passed the 3 fragments to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua took it and turned the 3 fragments over. He looked carefully and thought. So it was like this. However, I still don't know where this fragment fell from. Junior brother Xiao. Did you find anything? Sun Shu saw Xiao Hua's expression and said with a smile. Haha, senior brother Qian, take out the 2 spirit stones that were torn apart by the space crack. Xiao Hua smiled and said to Qian Diheng. What do you want my spirit stones for? Qian Diheng stared blankly. However, when he saw Xiao Hua take the spirit stone and compare it to the fragment, he immediately realized something and said in disbelief, could it be that this fragment was torn apart by a space crack? Haha, senior sisters, take a look. Xiao Hua smiled and passed the spirit stones and fragments to Kuan Fian. Kuan Fei Yen took a look, nodded slightly, and said, as expected, they are all smooth. Although I cannot be sure that they were torn apart by spatial cracks, but under the heavens. In this world, there are many magic tools that can cut apart spirit stones and fragments. Qian Diheng said unwillingly. But how many can there be in the netherworld? Sun Shu said with a smile. At this moment, the rapidly spinning hunting conch above Sun Shu's head suddenly slowed down. The swaying blood-red color became longer and at the same time, the hunting conch's phantom emerged from the hunting conch again. It swayed slightly in the hurricane. Great! Sun Shu's face lit up with ecstasy when he saw this. He pointed his finger and said anxiously, let's go! Without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, Sun Shu's figure flew into the air along with the searching conch's phantom. Fortunately, although the searching conch's phantom was in the same direction as the spatial crack, it was about 3 meters away from the spatial crack, so it could be considered safe. Xiao Hua breathed a sigh of relief and quickly flew to Sun Shu's side. Qian Diheng and Kuan Fian were equally surprised and carefully followed behind Xiao Hua. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, during which there were several spatial cracks, but they were all outside the searching conch's route. Xiao Hua did not remind them, but what made Xiao Hua uneasy was that the dark fragments they saw before were increasing in number, and they were all near the spatial cracks. At the beginning, everyone was still interested in collecting them, but after seeing many of them, they already knew that these fragments were not precious, so they did not look at them anymore. Xiao Hua just kept the fragments and did not examine them carefully. Ouch! While they were walking, the searching conch fell from the air again, and Sun Shu could not help but exclaim again. Fortunately, after the searching conch's failure last time, although everyone's expression changed, they were still calm. Look! Qian Diheng, who was a little impatient, flew another 3 meters forward and pointed his finger and shouted, There! There seems to be a lot of fragments. After saying that, Qian Diheng flew forward first. Damn! Xiao Hua had just closed his delirium eye, and wanted to use the exquisite leaf sutra to recover some of the Buddha's Sarira's exhaustion. Seeing that Qian Diheng was flying in the direction of the invisible spatial cracks, he could not help but turn pale with fright. Xiao Hua did not have time to think and used the awakening lightning escape, his figure fluttering in the wind, and like lightning, he rushed towards Qian Diheng. But Qian Diheng was also flying very fast, and the spatial cracks were also very close. Xiao Hua did not have time to catch him, and could only fiercely hit him from the side. Ouch! Qian Diheng was also a Qi refining stage 12 cultivator. How could he not notice? Feeling Xiaohua's lightning-fast momentum, although he knew in his heart that Xiaohua didn't have any malicious intent, his body involuntarily wanted to react. However, just as he raised his arm, Xiaohua crashed into him. An unparalleled force sent Qian Diheng flying, and even his mind was confused for a moment. Looking at Xiaohua again, after sending Qian Diheng flying, he took an extremely strange posture in midair. His feet were stepping on the void, but it also seemed like he was stepping on solid ground. His figure continuously swayed, obviously trying to avoid something. And just as Xiaohua's figure stabilized, he immediately flew towards the direction Qian Diheng was flying. Because Qian Diheng was like a drunkard, falling down from the sky. Fortunately, Xiaohua reached out to support Qian Diheng. Qian Diheng immediately woke up and said angrily, "Junior brother, what are you doing?" "Hee," Xiaohua scratched his head and said with a smile. "Why are you so anxious after seeing the treasure? Why didn't you say anything to me? We should enjoy blessings and endure hardships together." Saying that, without waiting for Qian Diheng's reply, he flew past the spatial cracks and flew towards the direction Qian Diheng pointed at. "You bastard!" Hearing Xiaohua's brainless words, Qian Diheng almost jumped up and shouted, "This brother also did not intend to take all of them. You also collected so many of these fragments along the way." "This." Before Qian Diheng could finish his words, he stood foolishly in midair. Above his right hand, the Taoist robe on his right arm was already damaged, and half of it had already been cut off. My Taoist robe is a magic treasure. Could it be that there was another invisible spatial crack just now? Qian Diheng was dumbfounded. Using his divine sense to scan the surroundings, that half of the Taoist robe had already been blown away without a trace by the hurricane. In an instant, Qian Diheng's back was covered in a layer of cold sweat. The magic treasure he was most proud of was like silk in front of a spatial crack. Just now, if not for Xiaohua's collision, he would have already become a corpse, right? "Come quickly, senior brother Qian." Xiaohua's cheers came from the front again. "This little brother knows what this fragment is." Chapter 1764. Qian Diheng anxiously and gratefully flew to Xiaohua's side. In front of him was a pile of black fragments. But this time the fragments weren't as small as the last time. Or rather, they weren't fragments, but several large pieces. This is a puppet? Qian Diheng was naturally experienced and knowledgeable. Looking at the shape of the several large pieces, he immediately understood and shouted, "Yes!" Xiaohua said with a smile. "Little brother just felt that it was somewhat familiar, but I didn't think that these fragments were actually from a puppet." Of course, the several large fragments in front of them were in the shape of a human. It seemed that they were cut by the space crack that Qian Diheng encountered just now. The entire fragments were scattered on the ground, so it wasn't difficult to recognize. "Why are there puppets here?" Kuan Fian and Sun Shu also flew over and asked curiously. "Puppets have always been rare in our country of Xi. There isn't a sect that specializes in refining puppets. It seems that, in the entire Dawn Rain continent, only the puppet sect in the north of Meng country has the ability to refine puppets?" "Puppet sect?" Qian Diheng shook his head slightly. "I heard that puppet sect met with some disaster hundreds of years ago and was destroyed by a mysterious cultivator. Yes, because of puppet sect's destruction, there are fewer and fewer puppets in Dawn Rain continent." Sun Shu nodded. "I didn't expect to see a puppet in this dark mystery. I don't know when this puppet was left here." Xiaohua picked up a large piece of the puppet's remains and said in a low voice. But before his voice died away, a thought flashed through his mind. Yeah, since this puppet was torn apart when it was passing through the space crack, someone must have been exploring the space. Since that person was exploring the space and was going in the same direction as we were looking for Zhongyao Lu, then, was that person looking for Zhongyao Lu as well? Moreover, this dark mystery only changed a few days ago. This invisible space crack also appeared recently. The person with the puppet must have just arrived a few days ago. Maybe he came in before the disciples of Xianghua sect surrounded the entrance to dark mystery. Or maybe it was because this person came in that the disciples of Xianghua sect and the other three sects knew that there were treasures in dark mystery. When Xiaohua thought of this, He suddenly raised his head. As expected, Sun Shu, Kuan Fian and Qian Diheng also thought of this and raised their heads in shock. Sister Sun. Qian Diheng couldn't help but ask. About Zhongyao Ru. Do Thunder Controlling Sect? Oh no, puppet school disciples know about it too? You're asking me, but who should I ask? Sun Shu immediately replied. I also thought that only the disciples of our Imperial Thunder Sect knew about this. Maybe it's just that the path is the same, but the things we're looking for are different. Kuan Fian said in a low voice as he looked at the countless gigantic wind pillars in front of them. Let's go. No matter who they are, since they're already here, there's no need to think too much about it. We'll meet them sooner or later. At this moment, Xiao Hua had already made up his mind. He waved his hand and the remains of the puppets were sucked into the space. Sun Shu's searching snail still couldn't be used, so he flew behind Xiao Hua. Kuan Fian flew a little slower and came to Qian Diheng's side and asked in a low voice. Junior brother Qian, what happened just now? Why did junior brother Xiao suddenly bump into you? Nothing. Qian Diheng glanced at Kuan Fian and said with a smile. Junior brother Xiao was blown away by the wind and was flying around like a headless fly. He just happened to bump into me. Tise. Kuan Fian rolled his eyes at Qian Diheng and sped up. He, Qian Diheng said in a low voice. What? Do you want to know a man's secret? I won't tell you. While speaking, he secretly looked at his Taoist robe and also flew away. Moving forward, it was incomparably smooth again. Not only did the wind weaken a lot, even the space cracks didn't appear again, which made Xiao Hua a little confused. But looking at Sun Shu's face, there was a trace of joy. Seeing Xiao Hua's somewhat doubtful gaze, Sun Shu smiled and said, Junior brother Xiao, you don't know, a place like this with a stable space is extremely rare. And in this kind of place, although the space cracks exist, they must be stable. And only in this kind of stable place, the space where Zhongyao's milk is in can exist for a long time, and we can have opportunities. I see. Xiao Hua nodded and asked, so the direction and place we came from are not wrong? It should be right. Sun Shu nodded affirmatively. Good. Before Xiao Hua's cheering stopped, the hunting snail above Sun Shu's head flashed again, and an illusion appeared again. Haha. Even Qian Diheng laughed loudly. It seemed that Zhongyao's milk was about to be obtained. The hunting snail's illusion flew extremely fast, and in the time it took to eat a meal, it actually found a flat place. The wind here seemed to have stopped, and there were obviously several wind pillars in the distance, but the strong wind caused by those wind pillars seemed to cancel each other out. There was only a slight breeze, which was strangely warm. Moreover, the ground was a little different, it was actually a little green, and the low plants on the ground also had green lines on them. This place. As soon as he arrived at this place, a slightly dense heaven and earth aura rushed to his face, unexpectedly making Xiao Hua feel a burst of freshness in his mouth and nose. How could such a strange situation not make him happy? Even if he didn't know if this was the place the hunting snail was looking for, he was already 30% sure in his heart. Haha, great. Seeing this, Sun Shu's face unconsciously showed a big smile. Qian Diheng even did a somersault in the air, smiled and said, I am indeed an extraordinary person. This is the place where I am destined to build my foundation. Such a difficult place to find, even without the hunting snail, I still found it. If I don't build my foundation, how can I live up to heaven's love? Haha, Kuan Fian's smile was also unusual. This flat place was not big, only about 10 zhong wide. Although Xiao Hua's spirit sense couldn't reach far, he could see everything as far as his eyes could see. On this flat place, except for the slightly green plants and the flat terrain, there was nothing special about it. There were also no invisible space cracks in the air. If it was placed outside of Mingxi, it would definitely be extremely ordinary, and no one would take a second look at it. Sun Shu was happy, but seeing that the hunting snail still didn't have any reaction, he turned to Xiao Hua and said, Brother Xiao, are you surprised? A little bit. Xiao Hua slightly nodded, looked around, pointed and said, If Sister Sun didn't say it, I definitely wouldn't have thought that there was Zhongyao Lu here. I would have just rested here and left immediately. Rested a bit and then left? Qian Diheng also walked over with a smile and said, We don't know how big this Mingxi is, and how many dangers there are in it. This 10 zhong wide paradise is like an oasis in the desert, You can only find it by chance and not by searching. Brother Xiao, don't look at how easy it was for us to find it. If we didn't have the hunting snail, even if 10,000 cultivators came with us, none of them would be able to reach here safely. Indeed, Xiao Hua nodded. Along the way, not to mention other things, just the space cracks alone, if not for his illusion breaker eye that could see invisible space cracks, the 4 of them would have died long ago. How could they have followed the hunting snail to this place? The hunting snail was good, but it couldn't see any space cracks. What do we do next? Xiao Hua asked. Nothing else. Sun Shu spread out her hands, showing the curves of her body, smiled and said, we just need to wait for the space cracks to appear. Brother Xiao, the space crack where Zhongyao Lu is hidden is a slightly stable space, and the area inside is also very big. This space crack will appear irregularly, and when it appears, we can go in to find Zhongyao Lu. When we find Zhongyao Lu and wait for the space crack to open, we can come out from inside. Kuan Fian explained. Sister Kuan, you actually know so much? Sun Shu's face was a bit awkward and asked, then, how do we find Zhongyao Lu inside? I only know how to enter the space crack. I don't know anything else. Kuan Fian pursed his lips and smiled. I also got this from Master. She only knows this much. However, she said that entering the space crack is only the first step. We only know how to find Zhongyao Lu, but we are still far away from finding Zhongyao Lu. As for where Zhongyao Lu is in the space, no one knows. Didn't the seniors of our thunder-controlling sect already get Zhongyao Lu? Xiao Hua asked. Didn't they leave it as a mark? Hehe, the space crack is not stable at all, so Zhongyao Lu will not be in a fixed place. Otherwise, how could so many seniors die or return empty-handed? The joy on Qian Diheng's face gradually disappeared, and he said seriously. It said that the space inside is even more dangerous than Ming Shi. We have to be extra careful. Yes, Ming Shi blocked 40% of the cultivators, and the danger inside the space blocked 55% of the cultivators. Only 5% of the cultivators have a chance to meet Zhongyao Lu. Sun Shu nodded and said. Xiao Hua heard and shook his head even more. Now I understand. Why is the information about Zhongyao Lu so secretive? This thing's effect is limited, and it's so dangerous. Only the disciples of our thunder-controlling sect would take the risk. Who else would come? Hehe, not necessarily. Qian Diheng raised a finger and shook it slightly. Don't forget the master of the puppet. Exactly. As long as it's a natural treasure, which one of them is easy to obtain? Kuan Fian continued. And who knows what other uses the Zhongyao milk has? Everyone discussed for a while, then sat down cross-legged and closed their eyes to adjust their breathing, quietly waiting for the space crack to appear. Xiao Hua adjusted his breath for a long time and secretly opened his delusion breaker Dharma eye. He saw that this place was filled with a kind of earthy yellow spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Moreover, there were extremely fine cracks in the space. Different from other places, these cracks were actually slowly rotating and moving, as if they were being pushed by the huge wind pillars around them. I see. Xiao Hua understood that the space crack where Zhongyao's milk was contained might be moving in the space like these tiny space cracks. Only after a certain time would it show up in here. Chapter 1765. Shui cast a spell and her body gradually turned over. Sun Ming looked at her with pity and withdrew her hand. Shui's long eyelashes trembled slightly. After a few hours, she fell from the sky. Shui opened her eyes and immediately fell to the ground. She kowtowed and said, "Thank you, Master, for saving my life." "Ah, Shui, get up." Sun Ming looked at her with a complicated gaze and waved her hand. Shui's body involuntarily stood up with a look of panic on her face. Sun Ming stared at Shui for a long time and said sternly, Shui, I've told you clearly. With your talent, if you cultivate step by step, it won't be difficult for you to build your foundation. It's even possible for you to reach the golden core stage. But why didn't you listen to me during this closed-door cultivation? Is this the secret method to break through the 11th level of the Qi refining stage, a secret of your Misty Mountain? Yes. Shui bit her lips and said in a low voice, I'll punish you as you wish. Why would I punish you? Sun Ming sneered. It's not like I made the decision on my own and didn't put my own future in my eyes. I know I was wrong. Shui lowered her head and muttered. Humph. Remember that you promised me before you went into closed-door cultivation that you wouldn't advance prematurely. But why did you suddenly change your mind? Not only did you advance prematurely, but you also used the secret method of the Misty Mountain? Sun Ming's eyes flashed coldly and said sternly, don't you know that breaking through 2 levels at once, your future cultivation will be much more difficult? Shui heard and her face turned pale. She fell to the ground with a plop and tears appeared in her eyes. Master? However, Shui choked for a long time and didn't say a word. Humph, you're so stubborn. Sun Ming sneered. Isn't it just the little guy called Xianxia from the Myriad Thunder Valley? Don't think that I don't know. Master. Shui's face turned red. She quickly waved her hand and said, this has nothing to do with Xianxia. What do you mean nothing? Sun Ming said with a straight face. I know everything about his shady business at the Feather Immortal Assembly. I've also heard about the matter between him and Huanhua Sect's fairy Xianxia. Master. Shui was a little embarrassed. She originally thought that Sun Ming did not care about the secular affairs of the sect, let alone the miscellaneous matters. Who knew that Master knew everything? This old one also knows about Xiaohua's failure to build his foundation. Sun Ming sighed and said, this time, Sun Shu went out to train. Although she didn't tell this old body clearly who she went with, how could this old body not know? If it weren't for the fact that you and Xiaohua have some sort of relationship, how could this old woman allow a rogue cultivator to taint the secrets of my Imperial Thunder Sect's lightning cultivators? Master. Shui's face was abnormally hot as tears welled up in her eyes. She said gratefully, your disciple has failed to live up to your expectations. Not only can I not compare to Fairy Xianxia in terms of looks, my cultivation level is also much lower. If not for your disciple taking the initiative to look for him, I'm afraid. Hee, you stupid girl. Sun Ming lovingly stroked Shui's head and said lovingly, Master knows that you are very strong. Daring to love and daring to hate is what Master lacked when she was young. Isn't this the reason why you attracted Xiaohua? Just as you said, if you didn't take the initiative to confess and force Xiaohua to accept you, you only had to take half a step back and this opportunity of dual cultivation would have been gone. Master. Shui was incomparably bashful, as if all her inner secrets had been seen through by Sun Ming. Don't be afraid, child. Don't you still have your master? Sun Ming said proudly. Although Huanhua Sect's fairy Xianxia has already built her foundation, with this old body here, you will catch up to her sooner or later. There is no need to be so rash. Besides, Xiaohua is my Imperial Thunder Sect's disciple. You are in a favorable position, so how can you be afraid of fairy Xianxia? Moreover, with this old body here, you only need to say a word to Myriad Thunder Valley's helplessness and everything will fall into place. It's fine if others don't know about your rash advancement, but if they know, they will think that you are in a hurry to do dual cultivation. Master. Shui's face was as red as dripping blood. She shyly said in a low voice, her voice like a mosquito. That's enough. You should adjust your breathing. Sun Ming clapped her hands and took out a thin booklet. She handed it over and said, this is our sect's secret technique. You should carefully comprehend it. You rashly advanced 2 levels. It is truly dangerous. If you can successfully cultivate the secret technique, the after effects from just now can be eliminated by 90%. The remaining 10% is nothing to worry about. In addition, don't worry. This old body has a sense of propriety regarding the matter between you and Xiaohua. Shui was delighted. She kowtowed and said, many thanks, Master. Humph. I actually want to see what virtue and ability this Xiaohua has to make you so infatuated. Sun Ming pretended to be angry and said, this time if he doesn't build his foundation, this old body. Master. Shui was afraid that her master would say something and hurriedly interjected. I heard senior sister Sun Shu say that this time, she also doesn't have much confidence. Don't mention Xiaohua. Hee. Sun Ming laughed a few times. She floated up and said as she walked, it is said that Fairy Xiao's master is Kai Qin, a fickle female cultivator. I don't know if Fairy Xia will be the same as her master. Farewell, Master. Shue's face was filled with joy as she sent Sun Ming off. When Sun Ming's figure disappeared, Shui patted her storage pouch and took out a restriction token to activate the restriction in the quiet room. She then sat down cross-legged. The secret technique of Sun Lei Palace was spread out in front of her eyes. However, Shui's gaze did not fall on the booklet. Instead, she stared blankly at the sky in front of her. It was unknown what she was thinking about. After a long time, 2 drops of clear tears fell from the corners of her eyes. In the Huanhua Sec's cold ice valley, the bleak biting cold and knife-like wind wreaked havoc in a 1 li wide and 10 li long valley. On the valley's stone walls, there was a layer of ice that was as solid as a boulder and as transparent as a mirror. The climate in the cold ice valley was abnormal. It was completely different from the other places in the Huanhua sect. Not to mention that there had not been anyone in the cold ice valley for 100 years. Even within 100 li of the valley, no one would come close for dozens of years or even hundreds of years. At this moment, in front of an exquisite cave, on a transparent platform sealed in ice, Fairy Xianxia was twisting her body into a strange posture. She was like a phoenix flying in the sky, but also like a floating cloud. One of her hands was placed on her forehead, while the other was placed on her back. Both of her hands were pinched together to form a mysterious hand seal. A faint green light flowed around her body. The path that the green light followed was not the usual meridians, but Fairy Xia's blood vessels. The green light not only formed a thin light shield around Fairy Xia's body, blocking the fierce cold wind in the cold ice valley, but also gradually gathered around Fairy Xia's body. After a few years of cultivation, it had gradually condensed into the shape of a phoenix. However, this phoenix formed by the green light was so green that it was oozing out. What was even stranger was that on Fairy Xia's forehead, there was also a small lifelike green phoenix pattern. However, this green phoenix pattern on Fairy Xia's gradually turning green face seemed a little rigid. Chapter 1766. Not to mention that Xiao Hua and the others were sitting in meditation inside the dark mystery, waiting for the space crack to appear. Somewhere in the dark mystery, near a wind pillar, there were several 12th-layer qi refining cultivators standing quietly. These cultivators were dressed differently and their ages were also different. However, their bodies were suffused with a faint brilliance, resisting the huge attractive force of the rotating wind pillar. Moreover, these people's eyes were burning with passion as they stared at the huge wind pillar. This wind pillar was several tens of feet in size. The rotating hurricane stirred up the space, making it impossible to see everything inside the wind pillar. However, at the bottom of the wind pillar, a light blue brilliance was faintly flickering. It was clearly the outline of an orchid. Strangely, this light blue orchid wasn't torn apart by the hurricane. Instead, it quietly floated, and its brilliance became increasingly bright. After a moment, a slightly older male cultivator muttered, This is the Dark Yulan? The legendary treasure that is even more mystical than the Foundation Establishment pill? Fellow Taoist Feng is wrong. A similarly older female cultivator next to him smiled and said, The Dark Yulan is even more mystical than the exquisite grass. Using the juice of the Dark Yulan to refine the Foundation Establishment pill, only 1 drop is needed, and the Foundation Establishment pill's attribute will immediately change. The previous Foundation Establishment pill could only help the true qi in the meridians condense into true essence, but this variant Foundation Establishment pill can directly condense true qi into true essence. You say, isn't this a treasure bestowed to us peak qi refining cultivators by the heavens? Ha ha ha. Exactly. Another thin cultivator with a slightly pale face twirled the short beard under his chin and smiled. The key point is that we traveled here together to look for an opportunity to reach Foundation Establishment. Unexpectedly, we encountered such a useful treasure, which shows that our opportunity to reach Foundation Establishment has arrived. Fellow Taoist Ming is right. That fellow Taoist Feng nodded and said, There's one more thing. This Dark Yulan is not the main ingredient of the Foundation Establishment pill. Every time we refine a cauldron of Foundation Establishment pills, we only need 1 drop. This Dark Yulan is enough for us and the junior brothers that we summoned. AI. If it weren't for the fact that we don't have enough confidence to take the underworld orchid out of the wind pillar, we wouldn't have needed to inform our fellow sect brothers and sisters. Once this information was sent out, it certainly increased our chances of success, but it also leaked the news. It is said that many disciples of other sects outside the Dark Insight have also received the news and are attacking the entrance of the Dark Insight. Fellow Taoist Ming sighed and said, "Humph. This dark Yulon orchid was discovered by the disciples of our 3 sections. What qualifications do other people have to obtain it?" The female cultivator shrieked, "Those disciples are nothing but chickens and pottery dogs. Kill them all." "It's not that easy." Another cultivator said, "Our sect's disciple has already come to report that a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect named Xiaohua used a secret technique and repeatedly took out a magic weapon to tear apart the defensive line of our 3 sect's disciples. He and 3 other disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect were the first to enter the netherworld." "Ah? This disciple called Xiaohua doesn't want to live anymore?" The female cultivator was shocked. How can we aura-refining disciples use magic weapons so many times? How can the meridians withstand it? Hee, that's right. This guy had just broken through and immediately fell from the sky. He must have been seriously injured. The cultivator sneered and said, "It's a pity that our 7 skills sect's disciples are doing their best to resist the enemy's attack. Otherwise, they would have been killed on the spot." "Humph, even if they don't die on the spot, they won't be able to reach Foundation establishment in the future." The female cultivator sneered. "As long as we guard the entrance of the Dark Insight, for people won't be able to create any big waves." Unfortunately, Xiaohua tore apart the defensive line of our 7 skills sect's disciples. The other disciples couldn't save him in time. Several hours ago, over 100 aura-refining cultivators from other sects had already entered the Dark Insight. The cultivator said regretfully. The female cultivator was startled at first, then she said disdainfully, "The Dark Insight is so big. How many people can reach this place? Not to mention that the Dark Insight has undergone some unknown changes. Spatial cracks have appeared without order. Out of 100 people who enter, no more than 10 will be able to leave. On the other hand, our 3 sects disciples have to use a secret technique to communicate. This wind pillar is just as fellow Taoist Feng said. It's actually weakened." As the female cultivator spoke, her face suddenly lit up with joy and she pointed at the wind pillar in front of her. Within the wind pillar, the hurricane was still surging violently. Even its momentum hadn't weakened in the slightest. However, everyone had taken out their magic treasures or magic tools to resist the wind pillar's rampage. Every change in the wind pillar was clearly visible to them. The female cultivator's words were all understood by everyone's magic power consumption. Thus, they all excitedly looked at the faint blue light within the wind pillar. However, what caused these peak chi refinement cultivators to blush with shame was that outside of the wind pillar, in the air 1,000 feet away, there was a 3-inch black dot flying in circles along with the air currents. If one could see it clearly, it was a small bird-shaped puppet. Thunder Control Sect's Thunder Palace. A small palace. Within a quiet room, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth suddenly gathered, almost forming a gale. This gale lasted for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Not only did it not show any signs of weakening, it became even stronger. There was a restriction outside the quiet room, but at this moment, it began to flicker with light. Not good. Which junior martial sister's cultivation went awry? The disturbance caused by the restriction immediately attracted the attention of several 10th-layer chi refining female cultivators. One of the female cultivators glanced at the jade medallion above the silent room and hastily clapped her hand, sending out a thunder sound-transmitting talisman. Wah! The restriction of the quiet room gradually began to let out a slight rumble, as if to attract the attention of others. Sun Zhou! A gentle voice sounded from afar. When the female cultivator who sent out the signal turned her head, a golden core cultivator had already appeared behind her. Greetings to martial ancestor Sun Ming. The female cultivators quickly saluted, and Sun Zhou quickly said, "Martial ancestor, the one inside the quiet room seems to be junior martial sister Xue Xue. She. Hey hi, this old one knows. You all can go on patrol." Sun Ming's spirit sense swept over, and her face was a bit gloomy. She waved her sleeve and said, "Yes." The female cultivators didn't dare to say more, and quickly left after saluting. Sun Ming's bright eyes turned, and with a point of her hand, she used her mana to open the restriction of the quiet room, and her figure disappeared into the quiet room. In the quiet room, Xue Xue's entire body was upside down in midair, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth swarmed in, gathering into her meridians. However, at this time, Xue's face was crimson red, and her body seemed to have grown by 30%. Her two hands were doing their best to form hand signs, but those two hands were trembling, and were unable to form. Silly child. Sun Ming's face was full of regret, and her figure flew in front of Xue, and she slapped her hand, which was where Xue's dantian was located. Once Sun Ming slapped, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that was gathering in immediately stopped, and Xue's hands also stopped trembling, and she began to form hand signs. Chapter 1767. Xue cast a spell and her body gradually turned over. Sun Ming looked at her with pity and withdrew her hand. Xue's long eyelashes trembled slightly. After a few hours, she fell from the sky. Xue opened her eyes and immediately fell to the ground. She kowtowed and said, "Thank you, master, for saving my life." "Ah, Xue, get up." Sun Ming looked at her with a complicated gaze and waved her hand. Xue's body involuntarily stood up with a look of panic on her face. Sun Ming stared at Xue for a long time and said sternly, "Xue, I've told you clearly. With your talent, if you cultivate step by step, it won't be difficult for you to build your foundation. It's even possible for you to reach the golden core stage. But why didn't you listen to me during this closed-door cultivation? Is this the secret method to break through the 11th level of the Qi refining stage, a secret method of your Misty Mountain?" "Yes." Xue bit her lips and said softly, "I'll accept any punishment." "Why should I punish you?" Sun Ming sneered. "It's not like I made the decision on my own and didn't put my own future in my eyes." "I know I was wrong." Xue lowered her head and muttered, "Humph. Remember what you promised me before you went into closed-door cultivation, that you wouldn't advance prematurely. But why did you suddenly change your mind? Not only did you advance prematurely, but you also used the secret method of the Misty Mountain?" Sun Ming's eyes flashed coldly and said sternly, "Don't you know that breaking through 2 levels at once, your future cultivation will be much more difficult?" Xue heard and her face turned pale. She fell to the ground with a plop and tears appeared in her eyes. "Master?" However, Xue choked for a long time and didn't say a word. "Humph, you're so stubborn." Sun Ming sneered. "Isn't it just the little guy called Xianxia from the Myriad Thunder Valley? Don't think that I don't know." "Master." Xue's face turned red. She quickly waved her hand and said, "This has nothing to do with Xianxia." "What do you mean nothing?" Sun Ming said sternly, "I know everything about his shady business at the Feather Immortal gathering. I've also heard about the matter between him and the Wanhua sect's fairy Xianxia." "Master." Xue was a little embarrassed. She originally thought that Sun Ming did not care about the secular affairs of the sect, let alone the miscellaneous matters. Who knew that master knew everything? This old one also knows about Xiaohua's failure to build his foundation. Sun Ming sighed and said, "This time, Sun Shu went out to train." Although she didn't tell this old body clearly who she went with, how could this old body not know? If it weren't for the fact that you and Xiaohua have some sort of relationship, how could this old woman allow a rogue cultivator to taint the secrets of my Imperial Thunder Sect's lightning cultivators? "Master." Xue's face was abnormally hot as tears welled up in her eyes. She said gratefully, "Your disciple has failed to live up to your expectations. Not only can I not compare to Fairy Xianxia in terms of looks, my cultivation level is also much lower. If not for your disciple taking the initiative to look for him, I'm afraid." "Hee hee, you stupid girl." Sun Ming lovingly stroked Xue's head and said lovingly, "Master knows that you are very strong. Daring to love and daring to hate is what Master lacked when she was young. Isn't this the reason why you attracted Xiaohua? Just as you said, if you didn't take the initiative to confess and force Xiaohua to accept you, you only had to take half a step back and this opportunity of dual cultivation would have been gone." "Master." Xue was incomparably bashful, as if all her inner secrets had been seen through by Sun Ming. "Don't be afraid, child. Don't you still have your master?" Sun Ming said proudly. "Although Wanhua sect's fairy Xianxia has already built her foundation, with this old body here, you will catch up to her sooner or later. There is no need to be so rash. Besides, Xiao Hua is my Imperial Thunder Sect's disciple. You are in a favorable position, so how can you be afraid of Fairy Xianxia? Moreover, with this old body here, you only need to say a word to Myriad Thunder Valley's helplessness and everything will fall into place. It's fine if others don't know about your rash advancement, but if they know, they will think that you are in a hurry to do dual cultivation. Master. Xue's face was as red as dripping blood. She shyly said in a low voice, her voice like a mosquito. That's enough. You should adjust your breathing. Sun Ming clapped her hands and took out a thin booklet. She handed it over and said, "This is our sect's secret technique. Carefully comprehend it. You rashly advanced 2 levels. It is indeed dangerous. If you can successfully cultivate the secret technique, the after effects from just now can be eliminated by 90%. The remaining 10% is nothing to worry about. In addition, don't worry. This old body knows what to do about you and Xiao Hua." Xue was delighted. She kowtowed and said, "Many thanks, Master. Humph, I actually want to see what virtue and ability this Xiao Hua has to make you so infatuated." Sun Ming pretended to be angry and said, "This time if he doesn't build his foundation, this old body." "Master!" Xue was afraid that her master would say something and hurriedly said, "I heard Senior Marshal Sister Sun Shu say that this time, she also doesn't have much confidence. Don't mention Xiao Hua." "Hee hee." Sun Ming laughed a few times. She floated up and said as she walked, "It is said that Fairy Xia's master is Kai Qin, a fickle female cultivator. I don't know if Fairy Xia will be the same as her master." "Farewell, Master." Xue's face showed joy as she sent Sun Ming off. When Sun Ming's figure disappeared, Xue patted her storage pouch and took out a restriction token to activate the restriction in the quiet room. She then sat down cross-legged. The secret technique of Sun Lei Palace was spread out in front of her. However, Xue's gaze did not fall on the small book. Instead, she looked blankly at the sky in front of her. It was unknown what she was thinking about. After a long time, 2 drops of clear tears fell from the corners of her eyes. In the Huanhua sect, in the Valley of Ice, the bleak, biting cold, and knife-like wind wreaked havoc in a valley that was 1 li wide and several li long. On the stone walls of the valley, there was a layer of ice that was as solid as a boulder and as transparent as a mirror. The climate of this Valley of Ice was abnormal. It was completely different from the other places in the Huanhua sect. Not to mention that there had been no one in the Valley of Ice for 100 years. Even within 100 li of the valley, no one would come close for dozens of years, or even hundreds of years. This cold wind was different from other places. Within the hurricane, there was an aura of the netherworld. There were even blood threads that were hard to see with the naked eye flying out. However, the moment these blood threads appeared, they immediately turned into ice and disappeared without a trace. At this moment, in front of an exquisite cave, on a transparent platform sealed in ice, Fairy Xia was twisting her body into a strange posture. She was like a phoenix flying in the sky, but also like a floating cloud. One of her hands was placed on her forehead, while the other was placed on her back. Both of her hands were pinched together to form a mysterious hand seal. A faint green light flowed around her body. The path that the green light followed was not the usual meridians, but Fairy Xia's blood vessels. The green light not only formed a thin light shield around Fairy Xia's body, blocking the fierce cold wind in the Valley of Ice, but also gradually gathered around Fairy Xia's body. After several years of cultivation, it had gradually condensed into the shape of a phoenix. Chapter 1768. However, the phoenix formed by the green light was so green that it was oozing out. What was even stranger was that on Fairy Xia's forehead, there was also a small lifelike green phoenix pattern. However, this green phoenix pattern on Fairy Xia's gradually turning green face seemed a little rigid. At this moment, a strong gust of wind blew past. The green phoenix swayed a few times, as if it was about to be blown to pieces. Fairy Xia's eyelashes trembled slightly, and there was a strong sense of hesitation between her brows. However, this hesitation was immediately blown away by the strong wind. Fairy Xia's hands trembled continuously, as if the phoenix was nodding. As Fairy Xia's hand seals were formed, the green light around Fairy Xia shone brightly. The phoenix celestial body seemed to have received a source of energy, and it expanded rapidly. Not only did the feathers become clearer, even the head and plume of the phoenix celestial body appeared. Furthermore, the phoenix celestial body gradually rose in the strong wind, and it actually showed signs of breaking away from Fairy Xia's body. After a short while, a crisp phoenix cry resounded through the heavens and earth, and the strong wind in the entire valley of ice froze. Fairy Xia's phoenix celestial body spread its wings, its head raised high, and a pair of blurry phoenix eyes flashed with a cold light that looked down on the world. The celestial body trembled rapidly, and broke away from Fairy Xia's body. However, the moment the celestial body broke away from Fairy Xia's body, the green light around Fairy Xia's body flickered, and gradually dimmed. Fairy Xia's face was filled with despair. Ga. The phoenix celestial body also cried out, and the arrogant eyes of the phoenix also showed the signs of nirvana. Shue's chi deviation was in the Sun Lei Palace, and there was a junior sister from the Imperial Thunder Sect who reported it, and Master Sun Ming who helped her. However, where was Fairy Xia? How could anyone discover her in this uninhabited valley of ice? The green light around Fairy Xia's body hardened, forming a layer of green ice. Bit by bit, it froze Fairy Xia's body from the surface. However, within Fairy Xia's body, there was a little bit of heat, burning more and more. Darling Xiao. In Fairy Red Dawn's gradually blurring consciousness, there was no Kai Wuxia, no Kai Haifeng, and the others. Instead, there was Xiao Hua's figure. Xiao Hua's slender phoenix eyes similarly had an aura that could overlook the world. This aura made Fairy Red Dawn feel incomparably close to him, giving birth to an unparalleled attraction. It made her feel like a moth flying into a flame. Fairy Xia finally understood why she fell in love with Xiao Hua at first sight. Netherworld. Xiao Hua and the others sat cross-legged on a small flat area that was warm and tranquil, and they were completely unaware of the numerous unexpected events that had occurred outside the Netherworld. The sound of sand falling to the ground grew louder and louder, like the noise of silkworms chewing on mulberry leaves. Great! Sun Shu was the first to open her eyes. She saw that the searching conch that she had been using all this time had begun to slowly turn. The faint red screw spun round and round, and the illusion no longer appeared. The entire searching conch flew towards a place on the other side of the flat area. Needless to say, that place was the place where the sound was coming from. When the searching conch came to a stop in the air, the screw stopped spinning. The sound was like the sound of waves crashing against the shore, gradually turning into a roar. Xiao Hua and the others were naturally overjoyed. This strange phenomenon was far from the spatial rifts that they had encountered earlier. There was definitely something strange going on. Indeed, at the place where the searching conch had stopped, a small yellow dot of light suddenly appeared. This dot of light did not stop at all. It gradually elongated and widened. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, a 1 zhang long and 3 qi wide spatial rift had appeared in the air. Gusts of cool wind blew out from that spatial rift. That wind was so rich in natural aura that it was at least a few times richer than the natural aura in this flat area. Xiao Hua scanned the spatial rift with his spiritual sense and suddenly understood. The natural aura in this flat area was coming out from this spatial rift, which was why the vegetation on this flat area was so abnormal. Only such rich natural aura could produce Zhongyao milk. Quick! Sun Shu first put away the searching conch. Then, as soon as she saw the spatial rift taking shape, she urged Xiao Hua, then patted her hand and took out a shiny talisman from her storage bag. She handed it to Xiao Hua and said, "Junior brother Xiao, please stick this talisman on the edge of the spatial rift." Yes, Xiao Hua knew that Sun Shu had used up a bit of his spiritual power. Although he had been meditating for a few days, he had been using the searching conch all this time. Therefore, he did not refuse and activated his spiritual power. The talisman emitted a bright light green light and gradually enlarged. It only stopped after absorbing 30% of Xiao Hua's spiritual power. Seeing that the talisman had expanded to about 1 qi, Sun Shu was clearly surprised. She looked at Xiao Hua with a complicated gaze, then looked at the spatial rift and said, "Junior brother, this spatial rift is about to shrink. You don't have to use all of your spiritual power." And, seeing that the spatial rift was indeed shrinking rapidly, much faster than before, Xiao Hua agreed and waved his hand. The talisman flickered and landed on the edge of the spatial rift. Immediately, the spatial rift stopped shrinking. Let's go. Sun Shu waved his hand and entered first. Qian Diheng and Kuan Fian, who had been silent all this time, looked at each other and entered one after another. Xiao Hua was the last to enter. Just as Xiao Hua entered, at the edge of the spatial rift, the light green light flickered and then separated from it. It turned back into a talisman and landed on Sun Shu's hand, who had been waiting for a long time. This. Xiao Hua landed in the spatial rift and immediately felt a heavy feeling on his shoulder. It was quite uncomfortable. Moreover, the spatial rift was yellow. Although he did not know where the light came from, it was like there was a layer of fog. The naked eye could not see far. He tried to release his spiritual sense and Buddhist consciousness. Just like Ming Shi, they could not go very far. They could only reach within 10 zhang. Xiao Hua could not help but frown. Sun Shu took the talisman and handed it to Kuan Fian, saying, "Senior Sister Kuan, this time I will have to trouble you to activate this talisman and strike it near the spatial rift. I can use this talisman to return here later." Okay. Kuan Fian obeyed and struck the talisman. Sun Shu patted his storage bag and took out 3 light green-yellow talismans. He handed them to the 3 people and said, "The time we have to search for Zhongyao milk is limited. This is a child talisman. After 6 hours, no matter if we find Zhongyao milk or not, we have to activate the child talisman. The child talisman will bring us here." Sigh, only 6 hours. Qian Diheng howled. "We worked so hard to get to this spatial rift, but we only have 6 hours. When they were resting on the flat ground, Sun Shu had already told them about the things they needed to pay attention to. Xiao Hua already knew the time limit and smiled. "If senior brother Qian is willing, then you can stay here for a long time. Not only will you have Zhongyao milk, you will also have rich earth attributes spiritual energy. You can cultivate until you reach the Yuanying stage before coming out." "I have a thunder attribute physique. Why would I cultivate here?" Qian Diheng curled his lips and said, "Moreover, we don't know where this spatial rift is usually. All the cultivators who entered the spatial rift and didn't get out in time all died. I have no reason to take that risk." "Hee, then let's go." Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "Senior brothers, where do you all go? I will go last." "All right," Qian Diheng glanced at it and casually pointed, "Then I will go there." After saying that, Qian Diheng didn't fly over. He patted his hand and Ming Hao's halberd appeared in the air. "I will go in this direction." Kuan Fian didn't stand on ceremony and found a direction opposite to Qian Diheng and hurriedly left. "Junior brother Xiao," Sun Shu waited for the 2 of them to leave before saying in a low voice, "This spatial rift doesn't seem dangerous, but in reality, there are many things that we cultivators can't understand. If we are not careful, we can be buried here. Junior brother must be careful." "I know." Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, "Senior sister Sun, which direction do you want to go?" Sun Shu didn't pay attention to him and looked straight at Xiao Hua. She seemed to have some desire. She opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but when she reached her mouth, she changed her words. "Actually, junior brother's power is really beyond I's expectations. That talisman just now. Senior sister Kuan could only activate it to half a foot in size." Hearing Sun Shu talk about some irrelevant things, Xiao Hua already understood that Sun Shu's cultivation was stronger than Shue's. Along the way, she had a tacit understanding with him. However, he and Fairy Xianxia were close. Although they weren't as straightforward as Shui, the feeling of their hearts being connected was far from what others could understand. Other than Fairy Xianxia, Xiao Hua had somewhat rashly accepted Shui. In his heart, he originally felt that he owed her. How could he provoke another female cultivator? Although he knew that Sun Shu had deep feelings for him, Xiao Hua still smiled deeply at her and said, "Senior sister, we don't have much time. Let's hurry and find Zhongyao Lao. I think Shui should be coming out of seclusion in Sun Lei Palace soon, right?" Sun Shu's face suddenly turned red, then pale. She bit her lips and said in a low voice, "I have always envied junior sister Shui. She is straightforward. She pursues according to her own preferences. Even if she suffers a setback, she knows where she failed. Unlike us, who are vague and don't dare to understand. Even if there is a chance in front of us, we will still miss it." Sigh after this parting, although it will be 6 hours, I'm afraid we may not meet again. There are some things that I have always wanted to say, but I can't. I always feel that there will be a long time in the future, but in the end, it is the time to say it. Xiao Hua's heart was filled with an indescribable feeling. He also sighed. Some things can be said, but some things can't be said casually. Ha ha ha, I understand. Sun Shu raised her eyebrows and laughed. I will go this way. Junior brother, I wish you great fortune and great fortune. I hope you can get Zhong Yao Lao soon. If I get it, I will definitely give senior sister 10%. Xiao Hua said without hesitation. Sun Shu smiled bitterly. Junior brother Xiao, don't be so nice to others. After saying that, she turned and left. However, after taking 2 steps, she turned back and said, Junior brother, remember, don't use the Earth Escape talisman. This space is within the chaotic netherworld storm, and there are spatial cracks all over the ground. You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.